Wherever there's an episodic series, you can bet two men will talk to you. AJ Talon and Owen Finch give their thoughts on Owen and AJ Talks.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Owen and AJ Talks. I'm Owen Finch, and I'm here with
AJ Talon, and this time we're reviewing a very special show from our childhood, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Book 1, Water. And today we're doing Episodes 1, The Boy in the Iceberg, and Episode 2, The Avatar Returns.
Yeah.
Since they're basically Part 1, Part 2, without saying they're Part 1, Part 2.
Yeah. I'm happy with doing Avatar. I mean, I know, I was even thinking today, like, this is like our first review we've done in a while, but I forgot we did Kiss Time Sis. That's actually the first review we did in a while, but this is like,
Ooh.
I would say, like, the first proper review we're doing. Like, that's when we actually...
a review of a not shitty show.
Yeah. But we talked about wanting to do Avatar: The Last Airbender for a while, just because it's a show that we both like. We talk about it a lot. And it's probably the greatest show Nickelodeon's probably put on that's like a cartoon. Like, obviously, there's probably other ones that's like live action and stuff like that. But
I mean, you could argue this is the greatest cartoon ever, let alone on Nickelodeon.
Yeah. And how we're gonna structure this time is because AJ and I talked about this behind the scenes. One, since we've both seen the show, if they make references to stuff that that gets brought up later and all that type of stuff, we're gonna mention it this time around because this is the first time where we both have watched the show in full. I think the past two shows, I think you've seen everything, but I haven't. So this is gonna be
and it's been a long time. So it's this will be like kind of going in fresh for me. But so if you haven't seen the show and you want a spoiler-free review, this is not for you. This is going to be, us looking back in retrospect, knowing everything. Well, Owen has seen all of The Last Airbender. I've seen Avatar and Korra. I'm not going to bring up Korra, though, because that'd be spoiling Owen.
Yeah. I think I know some things that happen in Korra, but not obviously like everything. So I still would recommend not bringing it up. So, and this time around, we talked about this. I think we're going to do this for everything. We're going to do season reviews for Avatar: The Last Airbender like we did for Breaking Bad. This time around, we're not going to bring up any like behind-the-scenes stuff that happens and stuff. We'll mention maybe some things, obviously, that, if we need to mention it. But we're going to save that for the season reviews so that way it doesn't take away from the actual like reviews themselves and everything like that. So,
yeah, because usually we'll spend like 20 minutes just going over behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah. And again, we're doing, as you said, we're doing episodes 1 and 2 together just because it's basically one big episode. It's a two-parter, so let's just get right into it. This episode...
it aired on February 21st, 2005.
Yeah, and they both aired the same day.
Again, another reason why it's basically part 1, part 2.
Yeah. I will, we won't go over directors and stuff. I think we'll save that for the season reviews. And let's just talk about this because I feel like we should talk about like what it was like when we were watching it as like a kid too. Because I feel like this is a show like we watched.
Actually, this is one of my earliest memories. I remember sitting down, because the commercials were hyping up the show.
Yeah.
I think I was like just in my parents' room because they had a TV in there, and I even remember the show that was on before this. It was The X's, which is like a family of spies.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it that much, but I was sitting through it waiting for this one. And then, and then this episode came. I was 4 years old when this episode showed up.
Yeah. I think for my take, I don't have the same memory. I didn't see this episode for like a while, actually. You would think that, I'd see the first episode, but I didn't watch commercials. I don't watch commercials. I really don't like commercials that much. I never really liked them. Obviously, like, I understand why they have to exist nowadays, but I
don't think anyone likes commercials, but when I saw the commercial for this, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'll check it out.
But, I think I did see this episode, like, later on, like, as Avatar was, like, ending and all that type of stuff. Yeah, it's pretty late as hell to watch this, but the next episode that we're gonna cover will be the first episode I've ever seen. But yeah, I really didn't know all that much, obviously, about Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think we'll talk about this. I think we appreciate this show more as adults than we did as kids. Like, we still liked it as kids, but, there's definitely more things that, like, it's catered to adults that I don't think we really talked about all that much.
Yeah, it was just great, by the way, because there's a lot of cartoons or, like, shows in general that you, like, see when you're younger. And you like it, but when you go back years later, it, like, doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
This is a show that I feel like holds up better in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the first time I actually saw it, it was probably, like, maybe when the show was ending, because if you remember, I think they did, like, a marathon, like, to hype up the series finale and everything like that. Like, every show would do that, typically. They'll do, like, a marathon to hype up the series finale. So that's when I finally saw this episode. And, yeah, let's start talking about it. I'm trying to remember, I think the first time I saw it too, if you remember, Nickelodeon always did like the Nick Picks. Like they would take like a bunch of shows and put them on a DVD of like big episodes that happened, and they would call them like Nick Picks. They had like 4 of them, I think, maybe 5.
Yeah, vaguely.
I don't think Avatar made it to the first one because I think the first one came out in like 2004. Avatar wasn't exactly out yet, but I think it's on Nick Picks too, and I think the first 2 episodes, like these 2 episodes are on the Nick Picks, I think, because it was the first episode of Avatar and everything like that. So
makes sense.
Yeah, let's just start talking about it. I think too we should talk about we never really talk about what makes the first episode of a TV series special. I think we talked about it a little bit in the Breaking Bad one, but because I had already covered the first episode of Breaking Bad myself, and then we kind of did it like in a retrospective way. I think when you do a first episode of a TV show, in general, I think what defines a success is obviously introducing all the characters in the show.
Well, not all but like the main ones that you're gonna follow for a while.
And then, I think the beauty is obviously you have to set up what the main plot's gonna be like throughout the show. Like obviously, like Breaking Bad and like Death Note, that sets up mainly like what the main plot is. They don't obviously go through in detail like what the main plot is. Like
like for Death Note, we don't meet L until episode 2, and you you've said before that like that really changed how you thought the show was going to turn out.
Yeah, and then Breaking Bad, we meet all the main characters, but like it's really about like building up like Walt and kind of like his drive and why he does what he does in the show.
Yeah.
And then
episode 1 of Breaking Bad I feel like is more of like the black comedy. Like season 1 in general is, but even though the tone's a bit different, it still does a good job setting up the character motivations, introducing them, and it's still entertaining. Like you can't just introduce this shit and it's boring, you have to make the audience care.
Yeah, and then, I even think, I know it's SpongeBob, but I even think SpongeBob does that, like, pretty well. Like, the first episode, SpongeBob gets the job at the Krusty Krab. Like, that kind of sets everything up, kind of, that happens, like, in SpongeBob and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Fairly Odd Parents, we'll talk about that when we do Danny Phantom and Ben 10. I don't want to talk about those right now, but I think Avatar does that very well. It sets up the motivations, and it sets up you get to know all the characters, but they don't it's kind of like a bit of a mid introduction. Obviously we don't find out exactly everything about the characters, but you find out about the motivations and everything like that. But I think the key thing is, I think we have to talk about too, is they have to obviously be careful in the first episodes. Well, since this is the 2 part of the first 2 episodes, because they can't set up too much stuff, because you want to obviously save that stuff. You don't want to make it boring. Plus, too, you don't want to set up too much stuff, because this is obviously like, this is behind the scenes, but I'll mention, because say the show doesn't get picked up again, you don't want to leave people like, wanting more type of thing, because if your show gets canceled, then you set up stuff that you can't even follow up on and all that type of stuff. So
right.
Yeah, let's start talking about it. We usually don't talk about the intro all that much to shows, but I think you kind of have to here, because it talks about basically the plot of the whole show pretty much. The intro of Avatar: The Last Airbender, I think, is really awesome. Obviously, the first episode's the only one where it's different. Every other episode, it's like the
every
same
other
intro.
episode is like the same, like standard intro.
But the first episode talks about how the narrator's Katara here, who we find out is actually like a character in the show later on. But she talks about how her grandmother would tell her about this war that's been going on for 100 years. And she mentioned, obviously, her grandmother, we find out later on, because we can just talk about this now since she shows up. She's like in her 70s, but like, obviously, she's actually seen most of the war, like how bad it was and all that type of stuff. But she obviously seen the...
At the same time, though, the South Pole seems to be very isolated compared to other parts of the world.
Yeah, but what we're making predictions about is obviously like her mother saw like the beginning of the war pretty much. If she's in her 70s, obviously, and all that type of stuff.
Right. I'm just saying that it shows like how long this war's been going on. That this old lady, wasn't even born when it started, but it also highlights that the South Pole. Even though it's like isolated, it's still like been devastated by it. Because we see later on a giant like warship that was one of the first attacks of the Water Tribe.
Yep, and then
and Katara specifically says like first, like there's been several.
Yeah, and then continuing, we find out that like the Fire Nation just invaded. One day, they're like the villains of the war. Pretty much is the Fire Nation. We will say like obviously we meet other people in the war that are like villains and all that type of stuff, but the Fire Nation are like the ultimate like villains in the war. Like they're the ones that like you want to take down type of thing.
They're the ones who invaded.
I mean, we can make these comparisons essentially from World War II. They're like Germany, Japan type of thing from World War II, and we find out that the Avatar was the one that usually kept peace in the show and everything like that, and in the world pretty much. However, he vanished when the world needed him most. Basically, when the war attacked. I actually never knew this really when I was a kid. I used to just think like he vanished, like he got killed like during the war or something like that. But I didn't realize obviously because they do an episode about it later. Like, we find out why the Avatar vanished. I feel like that one we should save till we talk about it.
Well, you brought it up at the before we started recording that you thought that the war was already happening when Aang was still with the air nomads.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time, so it's just like a small error. But yeah, the war didn't start until Aang was in the iceberg.
Yep. And
so
then,
of course, in this episode, Aang has no clue what they're talking about when they say like the big war.
Yep. And then we find out that the Avatar vanished, and there's been no Avatar pretty much, but this war's been going on. We find out that Katara and Sokka, we don't find out what happens to her mother, I don't think, in the intro, but we find out that...
no, we find out she's dead and that their father's off fighting in the war.
Yeah, and basically they're the ones that are, like, taking care of, like... Because they have, like, a little, like, community in the South Pole, and they're the ones that are basically, like, taking care of it. Them and their grandmother, pretty much. But it's mainly, like, Katara and Sokka that are, like, really holding down the fort and everything like that. And they talk about, like, it's very kids-centric, like... how everyone's lost hope pretty much in the war, like, because the Avatars vanished for so long, which we find out why later on.
And then, like, Katara says in the intro that they believe that the Avatar cycle is broken.
Yeah.
So, and then, of course, the Avatar cycle being broken, like, that being a thing is later on.
Yep. And then, yeah, that was basically the intro. I thought the intro, this might be, like, the best intro I've ever seen, like, in a show. That really does a good job, like, setting everything up. I really think it does a good job explaining the plot and everything like that. And it's kind of cool to watch this intro back and everything like that. And when you watch the episode, the Fire Lord and the Avatar, or whatever the name of that episode is, where they do a flashback where they show like how kind of the war started and everything like that. It all kind of makes everything connect and all that type of stuff. So,
just because this is the first episode of this whole series, as a kid, like, this was, like, a big introduction to me to more, like, Eastern influences, like, the show.
Yep.
Takes a lot of, like, of course, the nations are all based off of. Okay, so the water tribes are based off of Inuit tribes. Air nomads are based off of Tibetan monks.
Yeah.
Earth Kingdom is China and Japan, and Fire Nation is Imperial Japan.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely see the comparison.
And even the Avatar is based off of the Dalai Lama, I believe.
Yep, that's definitely a comparison. So it's kind of cool, like, because, we don't see this stuff as a kid, because I don't even think we really learn about wars and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I had no idea what any of that shit was as a kid, so I'm just saying this was my first introduction to a lot of that stuff.
And then the actual episode starts. I do kind of like that the episode, like, because it's called Book 1 instead of, like, Season 1, it's, like, the intro credits is, like, open into, like, a passage as if it's open in, like, a book. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then...
Star Wars did a very similar thing, because we were talking... Star Wars also does, like, the Eastern influence thing, where they call each movie an episode.
Yep.
Like, because Star Wars was based off of, like, serial adventure shows that George Lucas would watch when he was a kid. And it was kind of just like, you don't really know what happens in between episodes. Like, it is, like, you go in to a story that's already happening, and it ends, and then, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But so this is very similar.
Which is kind of cool because, we won't mention it, but the person that directs, like, some of these episodes, like, was a big influence in Star Wars and everything like that. So.
Yeah, Dave Filoni, yeah. And I just found that out, right before we started. I was like, oh, cool. I didn't know he worked on Avatar.
Yep. And yeah, going through Avatar: The Last Airbender, the first episode starts. They're out in the South Pole. They're just out in the middle of nowhere. We meet the first main characters of the show. It's Katara and Sokka. And
her older brother.
Yep.
Well, we see them in the intro, but this is our first, like, proper introduction.
Yeah. And I think we make a lot of guesses here, but I'm gonna guess that Sokka is probably like 14, and Katara is probably like maybe 12 or maybe 13.
I believe she's 13 and Sokka's 15. I want to say.
Okay. So
I believe Katara's a little bit older than Aang, and Sokka's supposed to be like 2 years older than him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll look it up, though. Keep talking.
But yeah, Katara's at least meant to be older than Aang anyways. But yeah, they're fishing, they're trying to basically find food. Who knows how long they've been out there for? They've been out there for a while.
She's 14.
Okay. So she's 14. So then Sokka must be 16 then if he
I believe so, or maybe he's 15. Maybe they're only a year apart.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, they're
he's 15, so they're only a year apart.
I always thought there was like a 2-year difference. So
that's it too.
But yeah, Sokka and Katara are fishing. They're trying to basically find food for the camp and everything like that. I think it's implied they've been out there like a while and all that type of stuff, like at least like a couple of days and that type of thing. And Sokka, it's kind of interesting to see Sokka's like character in the show when you're watching the beginning, because he's very like sexist and all that type of stuff, which he still kind of is obviously like later in the show. Not to the degree that he is here. Like, I do like the way that he starts. Like, he's meant to be kind of like a jerk in the beginning. Like, he's obviously like,
he's a jerk, but it's like, I feel like it's pretty realistic, because as we find out later on, we found out in the intro that all the men went to go fight in the war.
So he's kind of like the man of the camp, pretty much. So
yeah, and later on we see like the only other boys left are like under 10, like toddlers.
Mm-hmm.
So, Katara like says he's just been off playing soldier while she does all the work.
Mm-hmm.
But keep in mind, from his point of view, he is like the one line of defense, protecting his home. So that's led to him, and of course we found out later on he did want to go with his dad, but he was too young.
Yeah.
So he really wants to like prove that he's this like big macho warrior.
Yeah. And then
so a lot of this is him like trying to like live up to that.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that, yeah. And then Sokka's about to catch a fish, and Katara, we get to see our first, because we didn't even mention this, Avatar obviously masters the 4 elements. There's 4 elements that you use to do bending. It's air, water, earth, and fire. And we see our first line of bending here, the first scene where we ever see bending. It's kind of a cool scene. We see Katara, she catches a fish, she uses water bending and traps the fish like in a bubble. And it's pretty cool. I think it's kind of like a first introduction to seeing like any type of bending. And
yeah, and we see like, she's like moving her hands around, so like that requires like effort and like concentration.
Yeah.
But we also see she's like really struggling with it, so like she's not very good at it.
Yeah. She's still like in the infancy here. Like I think she just knows like basic tricks, but she doesn't know obviously like full on tricks or anything like that. And then
Sokka's not paying attention. He's trying to catch the fish, and then he ends up poking the water bubble with his spear accidentally. So the fish gets away, and he gets soaked in water.
Yeah. And this is where he kind of loses it. He talks about like how every time Katara plays with water, pretty much, he always suffers the blow of it. Which, if you think about it, it's kind of what happens to Sokka a lot. Anytime there's any type of bending going on, he always suffers like the blow of it. If you think about it, like that.
The tragedy of being the comic relief character.
Yeah, and he's like and Sokka doesn't know any bending. I don't think we should mention that. Like he's like
he doesn't have water bending because he calls it like magic water and
yeah, but he doesn't have any.
This was actually pretty good exposition, by the way, because the audience, again we grew up with the show, so we understand like bending and all that.
Yeah.
But for a first time viewer, like it does a good job explaining like what bending is.
Yeah.
In like a natural way. It doesn't sound like Katara just points towards the camera and is explaining it to the audience.
Yeah.
Like it actually sounds like a conversation like her and her brother would have.
And
he's like, all right, just stop playing with magic. And she's like, it's not magic. And then he's like, yeah, it's important to our culture, blah, 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 I don't care.
Yeah, I like this too, just because, it explains it in a good way, and like, first time viewer probably would think it's like magic and all that type of stuff. So I kind of like how it's explained and all that type of stuff.
Well, like it kind of like from our perspective, it's magic, but for them, it's not.
Yeah, and then they're about to basically hit like an iceberg and or like an ice float and all that type of stuff.
They're like in a part of a river with a bunch of
glaciers,
floating ice. So they're gonna they got to maneuver around it, and then eventually they get stuck between two clumps of ice. They jump out in time, but they're both smashed.
Yeah. And this is like when, Sokka's upset. Like, he said that he shouldn't have brought a girl with him. He's basically being rude to her. So this is where Katara loses it pretty much and mentions, that.
And then they both starve to death and freeze to death there, and the show ends.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Yeah.
But, she goes off on Sokka, and I think it's kind of cool because even though Katara doesn't know like the waterbending techniques, but when she gets like pissed off enough and all that type of stuff, she's like able to like destroy like an iceberg.
And we also see like she has no control of it, and she like is like bending the water behind her. And later on in episode 2, we see the same thing where she can't really control it, but she can like just throw it behind her.
Yeah, and then. Katara's basically going off on Sokka, talking about how she's been doing all the work while Sokka's playing soldier, which we kind of explained why that's the case. And she destroys.
Yeah, we find out their mom's dead.
This is when we find out. Yeah, her mom's dead, and we don't find out really why at this point. I don't think, but
no, we don't.
And then Katara destroys the iceberg, and we see somebody's inside the iceberg, pretty much. And, Katara wants to go help whoever's in the iceberg. So he takes Sokka's, like, machete and destroys the iceberg. And this light flashes, it shoots up into the sky type of thing. And I kind of liked, too, like, they have, like, these, I think they're meant to be sea lions. Obviously, in the show, like, animals are always different than, what they are. But I think they're meant to be, like, sea lions. They're kind of, like, echoing and, like, I kind of liked it because it was like music that was inside the show versus like it just being there type of thing. So that was cool.
Yeah.
And when we see this light shoot up, we see this guy traveling on a boat in the area, and he sees this happen, and he tells his uncle about it, and he says that
he believes it's the Avatar.
Yeah.
Who, no one has seen in 100 years.
Yeah, and he says that, he needs to find the Avatar. His uncle, who we find out name is Iroh, says that the Avatar hasn't been seen in 100 years, and he's telling Zuko, who we find out at this point his name's Zuko, that he's just setting himself up for failure here. But Zuko says, he's even mentioned too that like Zuko's like relatives and stuff, like his grandfather.
Yeah, his father, grandfather, and great grandfather are all tried and failed to find the new Avatar.
But like Zuko mentioned that like his honor.
Oh, and also Iroh calls him Prince Zuko, so we find out that he is Prince Zuko, the son of the Fire Lord.
Yeah.
And Iroh is also by extension royalty.
Yeah. And then Zuko mentions that like his honor depended on it. So we know like Zuko kind of has to find the Avatar because of his honor. We obviously don't really find out why at this point.
Yeah, we don't find out what his deal is exactly.
Yeah, but I like that like it was mentioned. The dynamic here was interesting. You don't really find out much about Iroh. We will say these first 2 episodes, Iroh's just kind of like I wouldn't say a background character, but like he's more of like he's just kind of like a supporting character to Zuko. Like they don't do much with this character. He is kind of, I would say he's kind of comic relief also a little bit. But
yeah,
like
he is.
But Zuko obviously it's set up like he's gonna be the main villain, like at least of the show, but definitely the first 2 episodes type of thing. Which I think is kind of cool. Like, you think Zuko's going to be like, if you don't know anything about Zuko, it looks like that he's going to be like the villain of the show and everything like that. And like, he's a bad guy, but then you find out more kind of about his character.
Yeah, if Zuko was like the big bad of the whole show, I would complain about how much like slapstick there is with him. But since he's not, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, especially too, he's very one-dimensional in the beginning, which I like. Like, you don't find out much about his character, but it kind of makes sense.
Right, and I think that enhances it. And, like, seeing him, like, at first is just, like, this one-note kind of villain. And then later on we see he's, like, anything but that.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
And I think I like, too, that, like, it makes sense, by the way, that he's very one-dimensional, like, because when you find out later on about Zuko's character, like, he kind of he doesn't really show as much of his emotions and all that type of stuff, and then you find out later he doesn't really know how to show emotion, so I think it's kind of cool, like, when you first see Zuko, he kind of is meant to be this one-dimensional, like, villain, but you find out when he...
Right, and we see later on a lot of this is more of, like, for one, he has a lot of, like, anger and aggression from shitty childhood.
Yeah.
But 2, it's like he's kind of forcing himself to be like this in a way.
Uh-huh.
We'll talk about more in episode 2, but him and Sokka have a really cool parallel to each other, but we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Yeah, and then we're back to the iceberg. Obviously Aang comes out of the iceberg. We don't know him at this point, but we're just gonna mention
he's just the boy in the iceberg.
Yeah, and obviously, Katara and Sokka hold up Sokka's staff, obviously, because they don't know what the hell is going to come out of there. And Aang falls to the floor, and he's still, like, he's glowing at this point, by the way, so he's still kind of, we don't know.
Right, well, before he was, like, blue, then the blue kind of goes away, and then he falls down.
Yeah, we don't know it at the time, but he's clearly, like, in, like, the Avatar state kind of by this point still, I think. But we don't know the Avatar state, we don't even know anything about it, but... By this point.
Oh, no, this is a cool, like, dramatic irony. So we know from what Zuko says that he's the Avatar.
Uh-huh.
So, but, like, Katara and Sokka don't find out till next episode. So it's just an interesting thing that, like, we're just waiting for them to get that revelation.
Yeah. And I think, too, we don't necessarily know either, I don't think, by this point, that Aang's the Avatar. I think the audience doesn't know, we should mention that, but I think there's, like, an inkling, like, we're meant to think he's the Avatar, like, when the episode kind of starts to play out and everything like that.
Yeah.
So... we meant to, imagine though, like, all this time, but if we, say, like, too, by the way, you first watched the show, if they went a different direction, we found out he actually wasn't the Avatar all this time, like...
Yeah.
Like,
Sokka's the Avatar? Well, that's a running joke in the show later on, that people think Sokka's the Avatar.
Yeah, which is hilarious. And then,
Grand's the Avatar?
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be funny. Well, yeah, because I remember, too, like, we'll talk about, because Zuko, like, you points her out to, like, kind of get people to... show him the Avatar.
She's like, look, this lady is super old, and she's like, oh wow, thanks, Dick.
Yeah, and then, but yeah, Aang's still out of it. Eventually, he does wake up. The first thing he actually sees, like when he wakes up himself, is Katara. I mean, this is obviously with a retrospective. We know this from one of the episodes. Like, that's the first thing Aang saw when he woke up, actually himself, from the iceberg. But I do like the way they meet. It's very in character for Aang. It's meant to be comic relief, obviously, but then you find out it's very in character for Aang when you see him later on. It's this big dramatic...
Well, even this whole introduction shows that he's very, like, goofy.
Yeah. But in the in the opening, he's like waking up and he wants to ask Katara like an important question, and he asks like, "Will you go penguin side with me?" And Katara's just like, "Yeah, sure, yeah." Like, I don't think Katara like expected that question because the guy was just like came out of an iceberg and he's asking like a question like that. So I thought that was But again, I feel like again with the retrospective, it was very in character that Aang would ask that question like first over like instead of like where am I and all that type of stuff. Obviously, Sokka's being very defensive towards Aang.
Right, Sokka's just poking him with a stick constantly.
But like he's being very obviously he thinks because he thinks Aang's basically like a spy to the Fire Lord and all that type of stuff. Because obviously like he had like the big blue light, he was thinking he was like signaling the Fire Nation or something like
and
that.
I mean he kind of did.
But he thinks he was doing it on purpose. So
he didn't actually. Oh yeah, and I guess I should bring it up now. So in a lot of shows, like the issue of like coincidences are a thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, it's really convenient that this happened. I think Sokka and Katara fighting Aang in the iceberg is perfectly fine. Because we find like Aang is from the Southern Air Temple, and we find out that's very close to the South Pole.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, Aang was going in the ocean. He, the iceberg fell. He drifted a bit into, like, the general area.
Yeah.
So, I'm fine with that. I do, however, think it is very convenient that Zuko happened to be here.
They did mention, though, that, like, Zuko had, like, traveled all over the world, so I guess
that's what I'm saying.
I guess it is.
Like, it's like, what are the odds that he's here and not anywhere else,
Yeah, that is true. Like,
and what are the odds that Zuko was outside when he saw the light? What if he was in the bathroom taking a shit?
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I feel like too one of the odds Zuko, like when you find out how much his art is dependent on it, I can kind of see that Zuko like would be outside like looking type of thing. I can kind of see like that happening, but yeah, what are the odds Zuko just happened to be there? That one, sometimes you have to just kind of check your brain at the door when it comes out.
Right, that's why I'm saying, like, I feel like, them, Katara and Sokka finding the iceberg, that's fine. I think it makes sense based on the locations and the characters. And I'm just saying that the Zuko one's a bit more of, like, okay, you kind of got to stretch that a bit.
Yeah. And then, basically, Aang introduces himself to, they introduce each other. And then, Sokka, obviously is questioning Aang, and then we meet another character who's a pretty big in the show, Appa, Aang's flying bison. And obviously they don't believe that bison can fly type of thing because no, I forgot. There was one thing I forgot before we even meet Appa. Aang sneezes and he goes up like 20 feet into the air type of thing.
And that's how they realize he's an airbender who are no one's seen them in 100 years, as we find out later.
I think, too, that's probably the best... Like, even though it's comic relief, I think that's the best way they could have found out he was an airbender. Like, that kind of makes... That makes sense. Like, I feel like if he just did airbender, that would be kind of, like, too much in your face. I feel like, him sneezing, I think, was the best way they could have found out he was an airbender.
Right, very natural.
And then, we meet Appa.
A little thing, I like all the... the animation details, like the way Aang like moves his hands, or like he jumps, and I don't know, it's just all very like lively and fun. I like it. A lot of detail went into this.
I mean, obviously, we'll mention the animation. Obviously, it looks better later. Obviously, because the show's been around longer, but and they probably
also this is the first episode, so I think they put a lot of extra effort into it.
Yeah, and I think it still looks fairly good. I mean, the show came out in 2005. I think we say this a lot when it comes to shows. Like, obviously it's 2005, but obviously, technology is going to evolve. This looks
great, yeah. Like, even by today's standards, it looks great.
I mean, let's be real, it looks better than some cartoons today, let's be honest. Like...
Oh, yeah, a lot, actually.
Yeah. I think it looks great, too, for, the first episode, because typically, they don't put a lot of things, I think SpongeBob we can use as the example, like... SpongeBob, obviously, in the beginning stages, obviously doesn't look as good as it does, like, in season...
Oh, really? I'll say on the opposite, that usually a lot of shows, like, put more effort into their first episodes, because that's, like, the impression,
Yeah, so I think that's good stuff. And then, I will say one thing that I feel like Jimmy Neutron looks better on the show than the movie. I would say just because I think they put a lot of effort in the movie, but that even then that we can't really use that comparison because that was when
one's a movie, one's a show. I don't know. I haven't seen either in so long. I can't really make a comparison.
Obviously, because you could definitely see the anime influences in Avatar here very early on, type of thing too. Like,
oh yeah, the eyes, like the just like exaggerated motions.
I think too why Avatar really changed the game up. We talked about too. It was a kind of a cartoon you really wouldn't see like the style and everything like that. I know we said we wouldn't talk about behind the scenes, but I feel like in this case we kind of have to. Like, this is why. Bless you. Yeah. Bless you. I feel like, too, I should have mentioned Aang sneeze, because you've been sneezing ever since.
Oh, yeah, and then Appa sneezes right after this.
Yeah. But we meet Appa, though, Aang's flying bison.
Oh, sorry, before that, because you brought up the anime, I had seen Pokemon at this point, and Pokemon's an anime. I always forget it's an anime, just because, like, it's its own thing, kind of. You know, like, it's so... but, like, not including Pokemon, this was, like, my first, like, quote-unquote, like, anime.
Yeah, because I feel like Avatar, it's still a cartoon. It's not full anime, but there's definitely anime, like...
in that weird middle area.
Yeah. But, yeah, we meet Appa, Aang's flying bison. This is when, obviously Sokka doesn't believe Appa's a flying bison, because if you think about it, that does make sense, because we find out later, like, the Airbenders have been extinct by, coincidentally, the bison have been extinct by this. Well, flying bison have been extinct by this point.
Which makes sense because Airbenders, as we find out later, are like very closely tied with the bison.
So that's why it makes sense why they don't believe Appa can fly or anything like that. And then this is when Appa sneezes on Sokka. Poor Sokka. He's comic relief like right when the show starts. Like.
Oh yeah, like already the universe is shitting on him.
Yeah. And then,
almost literally, he's got booger on him instead of shit, but, same concept.
And then, this is where Sokka has that line that becomes kind of famous in the show, like they use it in the ads type of thing, where Sokka says, I'm going home to where things make sense. It's kind of comic relief, but it does kind of make sense, like, because in their perspective, like, I like how Katara's instantly believing because she's always had belief that the Avatar would come back and all this type of stuff. But like in Sokka's perspective,
well, she doesn't believe Aang's the Avatar, but she asks him later because he's an Airbender if he knows the Avatar.
Yeah, but it does make sense that Sokka this is completely out of the ordinary type of stuff.
Yeah, I think he says all right, magic water, Airbenders, bisons that can fly. I'm done.
Yeah.
Honestly, Sokka's the most realistic. He's just I don't want anything to do with all this magic.
Yeah, which I think we would all be in this boat also. And then...
And by the way, I think the line, he says where I'm going home to where stuff makes sense, I'm pretty sure that was in the commercials.
It was. So that's why it's very, And then they're going to ride on Appa. Appa's about to fly. Aang says, yep.
Because they're stranded. Appa says that, Sokka says that line, and it pans out. And shows them just on an iceberg in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and they have nowhere.
So they're stranded. They have to have Aang bring them home.
Yeah, and then Appa is about to fly, but he just falls into the water. I think if I had to make a guess, I think the reason obviously later on Appa doesn't fly till later on for dramatic type of thing. But here I could kind of believe some of it could be why would an Appa fly here and there, but here I can believe it because he just got out of the iceberg. I assume his limbs didn't. Obviously... well,
Aang says, he's probably tired, yeah.
But I assume, too, he also just got out of an iceberg. His limbs probably had to, adjust to, be an...
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think being in the iceberg, tired him out. So he's just, gotta wait a bit to, get his energy back.
Yeah. And then,
And Sokka's very, skeptical. He's oh, wow, yeah, we're really flying.
Yeah. But then, back, Zuko is training. This is where we find out that Iroh is his firebending teacher, which I thought this was fairly natural how they kind of went about this, how you kind of find out he's his teacher and everything like that, and that you don't really know this, but you kind of have you kind of have the idea that Iroh has been kind of basically raising Zuko and all this type of stuff.
Yeah,
and then
we don't know how long Zuko's been hunting yet, the Avatar, but we know he's been out here for a while.
Yeah, and. Basically,
and Zuko's just a teenager. So.
Yeah, which is weird. I always think we really don't talk about this. That's still kind of weird to think that Zuko's a teenager because he doesn't Like, you can believe Sokka's a teenager, but Zuko does not act like a teenager. I think they
Zuko's only a year older than Sokka.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of talk... I'm glad they mentioned this kind of later on. Like, you know, like, Aang mentions this when they meet for the first time. But I like how, you know, it's mentioned, you know, and stuff. And how weird that is, because it does kind of make sense that Zuko does grow up because of all the shitty things he's had to deal with. And also, too, we don't know how long, but it's been implied he's been out there a while. Like, he had to grow up pretty damn fast anyways, having to be out there. Even though he's not raising himself, in his mind, he thinks he's raising himself type of thing. So.
Right, like, he doesn't really, we see from this, like, he's very angry, hot-tempered. He doesn't really appreciate Iroh as much as he should.
Yeah. And then, yeah, Iroh's only teaching him the basics in firebending. Obviously, because Zuko isn't really ready for the advanced set and everything like that. Iroh mentions to Zuko, you know, that firebending comes from the breath, and you have to be, like, patient and all that type of stuff. And Zuko's upset, and I think this is kind of like, you know, because Zuko's thinking he's gonna go up against, like, an old man who's mastered all the elements, and Zuko wants to, like, learn all he can since he's been, you know, because basically he wants to not be outmatched by the Avatar. And I think we talked about this, because if you remember...
Like, he doesn't know Aang's just a kid yet. He's like, this guy is at 100 years to master all the elements. He's got to be, like, the biggest badass ever. Yeah. You know?
I think, too, we talked about this, because if you remember, our cousin was actually watching Avatar. I don't think for the first time, but, like one of the first times. We didn't make this connection until we saw the episode back then. Like, I think, everybody, obviously, because they don't know who's the Avatar, but, like, I don't think we ever thought this. Like, Zuko was thinking, like, he kind of underestimated Aang. He was thinking, like, you know, he was going to be this 100-year-old Avatar, which obviously makes sense. And, yeah, it does make sense that, like, you know, everyone thinks that the Avatar's like a wise old man. That's why it makes sense no one knows Aang's the Avatar, because he's still like a kid when he comes out of the iceberg and everything like that. So
right. Like, everyone's, like, surprised. Like, you're, like, a kid. What do you mean you're the Avatar?
So I think that does make a lot of sense, you know, why Zuko is expecting this, like, wise old man to be the Avatar and things like that. So, and I think, too, this actually helps because the next episode, we'll talk about it when we get there, but Zuko has, like, an Agni Kai with the guy, and it kind of makes sense, you know. He kind of uses the training from Iroh and everything like that to be able to win that fight and all that type of stuff.
Well, it's also just solid advice in general, like having good basics instead of just focusing on, like, the fancy stuff. Like, even in book 3, you know, like, when we get to the episode of the Firebending Masters, like, it's just, like, having solid basics is better than just not having solid basics, but knowing a bunch of fancy stuff.
And that's why, I mean, obviously there's a different reason, like, Aang doesn't learn firebending. That's like the last thing he learns. But that's why, like, everybody, if you remember, like, when Aang goes to the firebending master, he didn't want him to learn firebending until he learned, like, earth or water first and all that type of stuff.
Right, because typically it's, like, you know, like, learning them in the order of, like, wherever you were born, like, will teach you certain values.
Yeah. And then, back, this is when Katara asks Aang about the Avatar, asking, like, if he ever knew the Avatar and all that type of stuff. And then Aang says, yeah, no, I didn't know the Avatar. And then he says that he kind of tells a lie, but he tries to kind of, like, you know, make it sound like he's telling the truth by saying he knew people that knew the Avatar, but I didn't know him. So
yeah, and then when she goes away, he's like he looks away, like, all guilty. So, like, then that's kind of obvious that he's the Avatar.
Yeah. I feel like, till we talk about it, like, typically Avatar, like, there's never, like, a moment, because it is a kid's show, where, like, you know, they leave things, like, up in the air type of thing, but this is kind of, like, one of those moments. I mean, even though you find out about it later, this is, like, one of those moments where, like, you know, it's very, like, you know, I don't think a kid would have seen this here, but this is, like, when you go back and watch it as an adult, you could kind of tell, like, Aang's hiding something here type of thing. So...
No, I mean, even as a kid, I knew he was hiding something. I don't know if I knew he was the Avatar, but I knew he was the Avatar because the show's about him.
Yeah.
But, like, I could tell he was hiding something.
We should mention this because we mentioned this off air. I think it's kind of cool, like, in the beginning of the show. You know, it's kind of told, like, Katawa, it's kind of told in Katawa's perspective, but then that changes later on. Like, obviously, Aang becomes the center focus, but the beginning of the show, the first episode, really, is told in just Katawa's perspective, which is, I think, kind of cool.
Yeah, which makes sense. She's a narrator. By the way, we skipped two things I want to say real quick. So, earlier when they get on Appa and they start swimming back to the South Pole, we see like Aang's like smiling at Katara.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Why are you smiling at me?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm smiling. Sorry." So he has a crush on Katara.
Yep.
So that'll just be important throughout the show, which makes sense. He wakes up and this like cute girl's like helping him. Like makes sense. He kind of just fell in love at first sight.
Yeah, love at first sight. This is where love at first sight actually makes sense for a change. So.
Yeah. And also when Iroh is giving Zuko the speech about like have solid basics instead of just focusing on like the fancy big moves. He like shoots fire, but like it shows how Iroh has really good control over the fire that he stops it right before Zuko's face.
Yep, that's cool.
And also like knowing how Zuko got that scar later on, it kind of shows like even though they're like bickering, like how much they trust each other. Like Zuko knows Iroh's not going to hurt him.
Yep. Yeah, that's
true. Like again, considering how he got that scar, that's a lot of like trust he has in Iroh.
Yeah, I think those are cool. Yeah, those are cool. Those are two big things we didn't mention. So I thought that was cool. And then we see a flashback because obviously because they're gonna be out there a few days. We see this flashback obviously of
Well, we're not there a few days. I think like they're just out there during the night, and then they wake up in the village. Yeah. So it's just like a couple hours.
But we see this flashback that it kind of tells us how Aang got into the iceberg. We don't really know the full context behind it, but like basically him and Appa were flying. We didn't really mention this. I guess we did see Appa fly, so we did know Appa could fly. I never really thought about this until now.
Oh yeah.
It just we don't see him fly in the present, but we know Appa is like somehow a flying bison type of thing. But they fall into the water, and Aang tries to basically make like a big like circle of air to get out of the water, pretty much. He goes into the Avatar state actually, and then he makes this big like circle of water and everything like that, and the water freezes, which is how he gets into the iceberg. But we don't know like which is kind of cool.
We don't know the context of how he got into the storm, why he was flying out there.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of cool, And then Aang wakes up the next day, and we find out. Well, I mean, we find out it's just a dream, obviously, like he's just having like a nightmare type of thing. And then Katawa notices that like, his tattoos, showing that he is like an airbender, and that type of stuff. And the tattoos, even though it's airbending tattoos, there was some, obviously because he's like the Avatar too. That's why the tattoos were very significant and all that type of stuff. So, and then obviously he goes and meets the villagers. Let's just say.
Oh, we find out later that like you only get your airbending tattoos once you master airbending.
Yes.
And Aang's only 12 years old, so it shows like he's like a prodigy.
Yep. And then Aang meets the villagers. Let's just say this: we know instantly which one's Gran. One, obviously, because it's an old lady, but she's like the only one that doesn't have that typical background cartoon character look.
Yeah.
So instantly. I think there's only like two characters that don't have the typical background look, and that's that little boy that like talks throughout the show and everything like that. Like he doesn't have the background like character.
Yeah. Oh, and she has the same like hair loops as Katara, so I like that detail.
Yeah. I just mentioned like that. I don't think I didn't even notice that, but that's how I noticed like that's Katara's.
Well, I never noticed that as a kid, so that's why I'm saying now that I'm an adult, I'm like, oh yeah, I like that detail.
But yeah, that's how you kind of know that's also Katara's grandmother. Like she's obviously drawn differently than how everybody else is and that type of things too. So
right, and just seeing how small and like tiny, like shitty the village is, really shows how the wars affected them all.
Yep. And then
like they're like 20 people in like a bunch of tents in a circle,
Yeah. And then everyone's in shock to see an airbender because they haven't seen an airbender in like over 100 years. Most of them have never seen it. I think they probably haven't seen an Airbender, obviously too, just because you know.
Yeah, none of them alive have seen them, and the grandma was just saying no one's seen them in 100 years.
Yeah.
I.e., no one alive.
Yeah.
Has, yeah.
But and then we see that Aang's holding the staff, and Sokka's asking him about it, like saying like you can't take any Airbender with this staff type of thing.
Aang's like surprised when she says that they all thought Airbenders were extinct.
Yeah.
He's like extinct, but then like the conversation moves on and he can't really like focus on that.
Yeah, and they're gonna come back to that like in the second episode. So,
or third.
Yeah, third episode. I'm obviously I'm thinking second episode because it's a two-parter. So,
yeah. Oh, and we skipped another Zuko scene. It was the scene I think before the training one, where he's like in his robe and they're heading towards in the direction of the light.
Yep.
Iroh's like yawning. He's like, "Boy, I sure am tired." Yep, a man needs his rest. Yep. He's like, "Zuko, go sleep."
Yep.
And then later on, at the season 1 finale, there's a callback to that line where Zuko says, "I'm tired," and Iroh tells him like, "Then rest." A man needs his rest.
Yeah, that was cool.
So we'll get to that eventually, but I'm just saying like it's a nice parallel seeing this is where he starts and then that's where he's going to end.
Yeah, because that's the last scene we see of them in like season 1 too. So
yeah, so it's a good. It wasn't their first scene in the show; it's like their second.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's a good like showing like their beginning and end, like bookend kind of.
I
bookended for book 1.
I did remember that scene. I just wasn't sure. Like it, I thought it was later type of thing. So.
No, I think it was. I think we just missed it.
Yeah, but
so.
Yeah, Aang. Sokka notices Aang's staff, and he thinks it's just like a regular staff, but we find out that Aang calls it a glider. Pretty much, it's what you would picture a glider would be. Pretty much, it's got like these, fans around it and all that type of stuff. And Aang talks about how he uses the air currents to control himself when he flies. And Sokka obviously doesn't believe he can fly. But Aang proves it to him. He starts flying around in his glider. This is kind of cool because the first time you see Aang's glider, it becomes like a significant thing in the show and everything like that. It's the it's the biggest thing that he does in the show. And Aang, just because the world likes to shit on Sokka, he flies right into Sokka's watchtower. And just poor Sokka. He just gets shit on this show. Like, then at this point, Katara and Gran go away to do chores. Katara talks about how, she sees Aang as this big hope and everything like that. She's thinking like she's finally found a master that can teach her water bending and all that type of stuff now. But Gran...
Yeah, and of course, like, she knows Aang's not a waterbender, but, like, she's just kind of desperate. She's like, all right, this guy can bend. Hopefully he can, like, translate that to water.
Yeah. And Gran kind of warns Katara not to put all your hopes in this boy. So even though, like, Gran's not as suspicious as Sokka, but, like, she's still kind of, like, doesn't know how to feel about Aang at that moment and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. And Katara's like, I sense he's full of wisdom. And then it cuts back to him, like, his tongue stuck on his pole.
Yeah. Which is funny. Again, it kind of showed like Aang, is still like a kid and everything like that.
Yeah, and it's showing like all the other kids in the village like him and are like having fun with him.
Yeah, and then there's the next scene is Sokka, because I don't think there's any more Zuko scenes until the end of this episode technically. So the next scene, Sokka is trying to teach everybody how to be a soldier and everything like that. Even though this scene is meant to be comic relief and everything like that, I don't think it's an important scene just because, like, it shows that Sokka really is the man of, like, the village and everything like that. And Sokka even mentions to him, too, like, they have to kind of, like, step up, too, and be, like, the man of this village and all that type of stuff.
Right. Like, Sokka's 15. Everyone else here is clearly, like, a toddler.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he in Sokka's mind, he's the one line of defense. Like, if the Fire Nation come knocking, he's the one who's got to fight.
Yeah. So, basically, no one really is interested, obviously, because they're still young and everything like that. And, they all have to go to the bathroom and everything like that. And Aang's still acting like a kid. This is when Sokka, is getting sick of Aang because he's just ruining everything. They're all having fun. And Sokka, this is when Sokka mentions, that, this is no time to have fun when there was a war going on. And Aang asks about the war, like he has no clue about the war. And Sokka's like in disbelief, obviously, because the war's been going on for so long and everything like that. Like, Sokka's like confused that Aang has no idea about the war. But Aang sees a penguin, he chases after it. So like they kind of move on from that conversation. But I do kind of like that, that like, it's obviously given like a timetable too, like. We find out like how long Aang's been in the iceberg and all that type of stuff. So we're like suspicious of why Aang doesn't know about the war. So, Katara goes and meets up with Aang. Aang's trying to catch a penguin. He's also doing this to try to impress Katara type of thing, because he's still like flirting with her and everything like that. So Katara makes a deal with Aang that she'll help him catch a penguin if he teaches her waterbending. And obviously, Aang admits that, he doesn't know waterbending, he's an airbender. So he asks if there's people that can teach him. And this is when we find out Katara is, like, the only waterbender, like, in the whole village and that type of thing. So we find out you have to go to the North Pole to master water. And, it's not... And we find out it's a long travel type of thing. But
I mean, you tell that just from, like, our world, like the South Pole and the North Pole.
Mm-hmm. So Aang, they make a deal pretty much that Aang will bring her to the North Pole. And with what you find out later, Aang, I think, was using this as an excuse because he knew he was going to have to master water anyway since he's the Avatar. He was going to basically use this as an excuse to go to the North Pole and, like, master water himself type of thing.
Aang, at this point, didn't want to admit to anyone he was the Avatar. He doesn't know about the war yet. Like, he doesn't think anything's, like, wrong with the world.
Yeah.
So, So I don't think he was looking to master water, actually.
Okay, yeah. He was probably just going to do this. I mean, maybe he was going to just learn waterbending just because, like, he's the Avatar. If he would have felt like he had to type of thing. But,
I don't know, because it just, he, like, ran away from home, because he didn't want to be an airbender, or the Avatar.
That's true, so...
And at the end of episode 2, they're like, why didn't you tell us you were the Avatar? And he's like, because I never wanted to be.
Yeah, that's true. So... Yeah, maybe he was just gonna...
I think he's just doing it more because he likes Katara and wants to spend time with her, and he wants to help her out.
Yeah. So they make the deal. They're able to catch the penguin. They go penguin sledding, and this is where.
Well, before that, I like how Katara is like, all right, listen close, young pupil. This is how you catch a penguin.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because she's like as a joke is pretending to be his teacher. And then, she becomes his teacher.
Yeah, so
for waterbending later on. So it's a cool detail.
Yeah, and then they go penguin sledding. This is where they run into the warship, and we find out that this is like one of the warships that invaded the village, like way back when Katara was young and everything like that. And
oh no, it was when her grandmother was young.
Oh yeah, when her grandmother was young. So.
And also, we see this ship in the episode "The Puppet Masters" in Book 3.
Yeah, we do. So that's a pretty cool detail.
Yeah. And by the way, I really like the penguin sledding scene. Animation's really good. Like the scene where they're going through the ice tunnel looks great.
Yeah, I like that.
So again, I just want to give a shout out to the animators. They did a great job. Looks great.
And then they go on to the ship. Obviously, Katara is doesn't want to go on the ship because she was told not to, but. Aang mentions, like, if you want to be a waterbender and stuff, you have to learn to let go of fear. So they go onto the ship.
So they both go into the ship. And it looks great, like, super creepy. Like, it's like the abandoned, like, metal corridors all look great.
Yeah, the music they use.
Everything looks great in this episode. Like, even the backgrounds, like, they're in, like, a frozen wasteland. But, like, the backgrounds are still interesting. Like, you can see sculptures in the background.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
The sky looks good, like it's like orangey, like the sun setting.
And then, they go. They also mentioned too that it's not a good idea to go on the ship because it's also booby trapped. Because that ties into what happens at the end of at the end of this episode. So, this is when Katara.
I'm surprised. I forgot how they weren't really on the ship that long. Like, I haven't seen this episode in years.
Yeah.
So, I forgot this is like, they didn't go onto the ship until, like, the end of the episode.
Yeah, I did too, actually. But yeah, Katara's like mentioning that this ship has haunted like her family for like years when the war started, and Aang's like confused, like, wait, I've never heard any war, and I've never heard the monks mention a war to me, and all that type of stuff.
Well, he says like he's been all over the world and he has friends like even in the Fire Nation.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Yeah, which is cool because we find out later more about like his Fire Nation friend.
Yeah, and then
although little detail, I think it's weird that Aang has never been to the South Pole.
Yeah, that is kind of
because we find out like Aang's been to Omashu in the Earth Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
He's been to the Fire Nation homeland.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's been all over the world. Like he says himself. Like he's been to the Earth Kingdom, the Fire Nation, blah blah blah. And like the South Pole where he the Southern Air Temple where he lives is like right next to the South Pole.
Yeah, that is.
So I just think it's weird he's never been to the Water Tribe there.
Yeah, I know.
Like you figure he'd get there and he's like, "What the fuck happened?"
Yeah, especially too like you would think, by the way, like that'd be like me like have never been to Plymouth, but yet somehow I went to like Florida all of a sudden. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's just weird that he's never been like next door, basically.
Yeah.
Like the reason he's in the South Pole is because it was so close to the Southern Air Temple.
Yeah, so that's strange. Yeah. He's even been to like,
and like I know why it's done. It's because like the same thing I said. Like he would be like, "Why is the South Pole shitty all of a sudden?"
Yeah, but
like it's done because but like still, I think it's weird
because it is strange. Because didn't he mention he had been to the Northern Air Temple, which is like on the completely other side?
Yeah,
of
he's been to every Air Temple.
Yeah, so that is weird. Yeah, I guess I could kind of understand why he would go to every Air Temple though, just because like that's a big thing for the Airbenders and stuff. But,
right, but he's also been to Omashu in the Earth Kingdom. He's been to the Fire Nation.
Yeah.
He's been everywhere.
But, this is when.
Oh yeah, and also like in the desert episode, he says he went to the like desert area like with the iceberg in the middle.
Yeah.
Like he said, I've been there before, and then like when he gets there, it's like shitty, and he's like, "Huh, it must have changed in the last 100 years."
Yeah, which is weird. Yeah.
So yeah, point is he's been everywhere, but he hasn't somehow been to like his next door neighbor.
You can make an argument that's also like a coincidence type of thing for the show, but you understand why they have it that way for the show type of thing. So
yeah, I understand, but it is weird.
Yeah, and
it's also because like we've seen he has friends in the Fire Nation Earth Kingdom.
Yeah,
and it sucks we never get to see any like waterbender friends he had.
Yeah, and I guess he couldn't go to like, like imagine like he got frozen like in the. I'm not saying he would, but like if he woke up in the Fire Nation, he would have like obviously he couldn't be there because he would immediately get like kidnapped. Like they would know he's the Avatar type of thing.
Oh yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, no, him waking up in the South Pole, I think makes sense. I just think it's weird that he's never been there before.
Yeah. But this is where Katara like starts asking Aang like how long he's been in the iceberg for, and he's thinking like he's only been there like a couple of days, and Katara points out like I think it's been like 100 years, and Aang can't believe this. He doesn't really believe it at first, type of thing. But Katara basically points out that like. Since the war's 100 years, you don't know about it because, this is where I started to make the connection. Like, I don't think the war was exactly 100 years, but we kind of talked about that already. Because I do remember he never necessarily, like, heard about the war, but we do see with the episode where he does the flashback. They didn't tell him about it, but they mentioned, like, there was a war imminent. But, obviously, this is because Aang was spying on him when they mentioned, like, they wanted to take him away from, like, Kyatso and all that type of stuff.
Right, and then like we find out later on that like the war started like a couple of months after he like got on the iceberg.
Yeah.
So like Aang getting frozen and the war are both roughly 100 years.
Yeah, and then like I would imagine like because they said the war was, I imagine the war probably started like maybe a few months probably after Aang was frozen in the iceberg.
So like at this point in the show, like because the show ends like a couple months like roughly a year after this episode.
Yeah.
So it's probably like the war's like 99 years right now, and like it'll be 100 by the end of the show.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I think it's kind of cool. Like you kind of find out how old Ain's supposed to be. He says, "Do I look 112 years old?" I think the way we found out about Ain's age is very natural. Like it's not like they just
right. So 112 minus 100, he's 12.
Yeah. So
because we had to look up how old Sokka and Katara are because I don't think the show ever says how old they are.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of cool, and I think it makes sense that Aang wouldn't age in the iceberg because a lot of cartoons and stuff do this when you get frozen for a while. You don't age and all that type of stuff. I think that makes sense just because, like...
Well, that's a real thing, too. Like, I mean, obviously you die because you're frozen, but, like, you're, like, preserved. Like, you don't age or anything.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool. Aang's obviously in disbelief. I thought they sold that pretty well. Like, Katara says there has to be a bright side, and Aang... Obviously, I don't think Aang knows the bright side yet, really, obviously, just because, like, his character's still evolving. Imagine just figured out the bright side right away type of thing. Like, oh, yep, this is great, but, like, his character's still evolving.
Yeah,
so, like,
this is great. I love that everyone I know and love is dead.
Yeah.
But he's like, well, I did get to meet you, and then she smiles.
Yeah.
And then she's like, okay, let's get out of here. But in the next scene, it's like, it's weird, because she's like, okay, let's get out of here. And then immediately cuts next scene, and it's like, Aang, stop, don't go in there, we should leave.
Yeah.
So it's like a weird cut. Like, it's like they're leaving, and then they have to get booby-trapped.
Yeah. So they get
That whole scene, I don't know, it's like, I feel like the revelation that Aang's been in the iceberg for 100 years should have been saved for next episode.
Yeah, I guess I can get that. I guess they wanted...
And, like, he gets over it too quick.
Yeah.
Like, I get that's, like, a lot to keep talking. I gotta let my dog out.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying, because, yeah, that is a lot to process. Like, I think Aang definitely gets over it too quick. I feel like, too, if they didn't go back to it and all that type of stuff, like, later on and stuff, I would complain about it more, but I do like the fact that, like, it kind of becomes, like, a motivation to Aang later on and all that.
Oh, yeah, like, Aang, being frozen and, like, what happened to the Airbenders is, like, a big motivation for, not even just this show, for the rest of his life.
Yeah. And, like, it kind of...
But, like... For this being, like, the moment that he, well, consider what happens in episode 3 when he finds out what happened to, the people he knew.
Yeah.
Like, he flipped out, and it just seems, like, weird here that he's just, like, he sits down, he's like, oh my god, 100 years.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, okay, anyway.
Yeah, it is weird.
I get it's a lot to take in, and he probably didn't fully process it.
Yeah.
But,
especially, too...
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, like, it was too quick,
yeah.
I guess.
I guess he should have, like, processed it, too. But I think I get why he didn't process it, because he still doesn't really know about the war too much and everything that's happened since then, so he still...
Well, in the next episode, he, like, jokes that he's like, oh, wow, I haven't cleaned my room in 100 years.
Yeah, so it's weird, yeah.
And, like, I guess he just hasn't, like, processed that, like, even if the Airbenders were all still alive, like, everyone he knew would be dead.
Yeah, so... That is strange, yeah. That is one of the things where... I guess it's a kid's show, like, he wouldn't process it that way. But, like, if Avatar was an adult show, they probably would have talked about it maybe a little bit more and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, so, I guess it's just, like, it's too quick. I would have preferred it if, like, it was next episode and we give it some time for him to, like...
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess to have more of a reaction. He just didn't really seem to react to this.
Yeah. I always thought that, too, yeah. And then he steps on a booby trap. It's like there's like a bunch of snow there type of thing, and he steps on it, and the booby trap goes off. The ship, there's like a door that closes behind them, like a gate, and then a flare goes off.
A flare goes up in the sky.
And then this I can believe wasn't coincidental, that Zuko just happened to be watching when this was going on, just because, he had known there was an Avatar out there. You could believe that Zuko wouldn't leave that spot to kind of find out.
Oh, yeah, no, this is fine. Like, he's been looking in this general area. He sees the flare. He, like, looks over the location.
Yeah.
He sees Aang jump out of the ship with Katara, and he's, like, using airbending.
And I still think it's cool that he still thinks he's, like, 100 years old. Like, he's pretty agile for his old age.
Right, because he's like, super far away. You can't really see him.
Yeah. And basically, this is when Zuko says that they're going to head course for the town and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, because he sees, like, Aang Katara running back to the South Pole. He's like, I found the coward and his hiding spot.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool. And that's basically how the episode ends. It's a cliffhanger, which is weird. It's a cliffhanger, but the episode aired the same day. I think how it happened, when the episode actually aired, they probably just continued the episode. I don't think it actually was I think it was just a big long episode, and it went to, like, commercial here. But, like, because it's a two-parter, on Paramount Plus, Netflix, wherever you watch this from, it's as if it's a separate episode type of thing.
Well, I mean, it is technically. They just premiered it together,
They did the two-episode premiere type of thing, so you didn't have to wait.
Yeah,
you didn't have to wait very long for A lot of people are gonna be like,
although you guys might have to wait for a review because it's been like an hour and a half already, and I don't think I have time for episode 2.
all right, so we'll just do episode 1 then. Sorry about that.
Although I don't know how you want to post this. Maybe we'll just talk later and then post these together.
Yeah, because we don't have to. The video's not gonna be out for another week, so we'll post this we'll just end it here. We'll just end it here. I don't think no plugs or anything because we'll come back and talk about this like later on and all that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, are you gonna like put our episode 2 review like into this? Like it's gonna be one video.
Yeah, we'll edit it. So.
Okay, cool. So do you want to give this episode a rating?
Yeah, let's do a letter grade. I actually think this is really solid. I think this is a really solid introduction to everybody. You get to meet all of the characters. You get kind of like, it does a good job of setting up everybody and everything like that.
Their basic motivations, like where they're going to go.
Yeah.
The world, like again, we already know, 4 nations, bending, blah, blah, blah. But like for a first-time viewer, it does a really good job like setting up the world.
Yeah.
But like not too much. Like it's still like mysterious. You don't know everything.
Yeah. It
sets up the basics, and it's gonna like expand on that as the show goes on.
I think the biggest critique, like we said, is that Aang got over being in the iceberg for 100 years too quick. I think they should have like kind of stuck to that a little bit. So.
Yeah.
I think I get it. Like, because they obviously wanted to do the cliffhanger. I like the cliffhanger that they go with Zuko, is obviously because that's the threat that's incoming and everything like that. But I think they got over it too quick.
I'm glad they didn't have Zuko fight in the first episode because I feel like a lot of shows are like, all right, the villain and the hero got to meet episode 1.
Yeah.
I'm glad they like kind of gave Zuko like the back seat.
Yeah.
For this episode, like focused on like Sokka, Katara, Aang.
Yeah, and he's very like.
And then episode 2, it's gonna be Zuko.
They did give him like the typical villain treatment, but I think it works here. Where like they build up the villain pretty well and all that type of stuff. He is very one dimensional in the beginning, but again, it makes sense with what you see, what they do with him.
Right, like I think that's like same with Sokka. Like Sokka's supposed to be like kind of a jerk. Like you're not supposed to fully like him yet, and then you'll grow to like him as the show goes on. Yeah. Same with Zuko.
So, yeah,
because I think a lot of people like will be like, I don't like this character in the first 5 seconds. It sucks. Yeah. It's like no. Like you can make an unlikable character and then like make you like them. That's fine.
Yeah, and I think too. I think Avatar: The Last Airbender is like the first kid show. Maybe not the first kid show, but the first Nickelodeon show to kind of like.
Where you like the villain.
Yeah. Where you dislike or not just that, but where you dislike one of them, like Sokka, where you're meant to dislike him in the beginning and stuff, and then you warm up to him, and then obviously Zuko.
Although even then, like I understand him, like I understand why he's the way he is, and he's not like a total jerk as we see in the next episode. He's a pretty decent dude.
Yeah, and then obviously Zuko, you're meant to, they do it. This is like the first time they did like a villain's journey where the villain started out as a bad guy and then he becomes a good guy type of thing. So it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah, really good redemption arc.
Yeah. So,
I mean, when you talk about character redemption arcs, like Zuko is like one of the best.
Mm-hmm. Like, we don't just say the best kid-wise, like one of the best period type of thing. Like.
Yeah, exactly. Like really good. Like he's really solid. His character development.
Yeah. And I think that's a good...
Like, seeing where he is in episode 1 and seeing him at the end of the show is, like, completely different.
And, I think the first episode does a really good job of, like, setting up, like, they don't introduce you, like, too much. Like, Iroh isn't really much of a character, which I'm okay with. I like the fact that, like, we don't find out a lot about him in the beginning and all that type of stuff. So, I liked this. So, I would give this episode,
it does exactly what it needs to for episode 1.
Yeah. I would give this episode, the art style, the voice acting's really good too, and everything like that.
Art style is great, voice acting is good. The person who voiced Aang was 12 years old,
Yeah. You could
for a literal kid, like, he does a great job.
Yeah, and you could definitely tell he was definitely, like, 12 too, because his voice... You could definitely tell, like, the voice actor, like, ages and stuff.
Yeah, like, as the show goes on, you'll see, like, his voice is, like, deeper.
Yeah, which makes sense, because Aang's aging at this age. Well, I guess you can't really say it makes sense.
Well, he ages, like, a year.
But... I think your voice would change. I think your voice does change, like, from 12 to 13. So, again, that's one of...
Well, it's funny, like, the voice actor for Aang did a commercial for, like, the series finale.
Yep.
And like obviously he had finished recording for a while at that point. So like he does not sound like Aang anymore.
Yeah. But yeah,
when he did that commercial, so it's just so funny.
Yeah, but like really good introduction. So I'm gonna give this episode like a solid like B. It's not quite a B plus, but it's really like a solid B. What would you give the first episode of Avatar: The Last?
I give it like a B plus or A minus. I'm leaning more towards A minus. I think it's just like a really good first episode.
Might go B plus also too. So, so yeah, really great stuff, and that's pretty much it. Well. I
guess you'll see us for in the same video in like a couple seconds.
I know this is like one of those weird things where like we'll leave. We're not. I don't know when we're actually gonna.
We're not leaving for you, but we're leaving for us.
Yeah. So I don't know. See you in a couple seconds, I guess. Even though I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, we're just gonna suddenly change clothes in time of day, probably.
Yeah. So.
Owen and AJ Talks will be right back right after this word from FTW Productions.
Scan the QR codes to see what's upcoming for FTW Productions and what's available on demand right now. Owen the Talkinator Studios series premiere of Owen and AJ Talks. Welcome to the FTW family, Zero Miller. Shared experiences re-airing on the new FTW main hub. All Retro Wrestling Review Series videos on demand and upcoming. The Wrestling Rundown makes its return, available now on demand. Fantasy Booking Series video, If Goldberg Stayed in WWE in 2004. Pride CAW Supercard by Zero Entertainment. All of a Simple Man's Brand Simply Predicting panels. Simple Bracketology season premiere covering the G1 Climax 33. AEW Spark, WWE Aftershock, every show week by week. Indie Force Episode 26, available now on demand. Jeff Meacham Network, all watch-along events. AEW Double or Nothing Dynamite Go Home Show Watch Party, available now on demand. A Simple Take, WWE Simple Takes featuring Cat of the 18 Studios. Super Mario Bros. Z voice acting. Episode 3 coming soon. Breaking news. ATW View Impromptu. WYW Intro and Immortal Stream. Wrestling with Idiocy Episode 8. Fast Food and Restaurants discussion. Plugs have concluded. On to the video.
Welcome back to Owen and AJ Talks.
Alright, so let's continue talking.
Yeah, don't punch him, ass. It's been only a couple seconds, right, Owen?
I know, like
2 or 3
a couple of seconds. I guess it gets dark in like a couple of seconds, I guess, too, because I think it was light when we did the last one, so...
Yeah. I mean, time, weird.
I mean, we changed clothes really fast. That's great. Isn't that
Yeah, we
great?
changed clothes. My hair's longer, but I think I shaved. But it's all good.
I mean, all in the span of 2 seconds. I mean, I'm really
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
if only
a
we could've-
family secret. We can just spontaneously change our appearance.
If only we could have this amount of time when it came to our videos this past 3 years when we were on ice. We couldn't have that though. Couldn't have that. But yeah, let's just continue talking. We essentially, if you think about it, called it Avatar: The Last Airbender this episode because they did a 2-part at the same day. So why can't we, right? So
Ooh. Yeah, but I have the wiki pulled up right here. This is
I don't
Avatar.
think. I don't think we needed as much because we kind of addressed it if you remember in the first part too.
Yeah, but still, just to like pull up the
Yeah.
But same thing as before. After the Last Airbender, Book 1 Water, Episode 2, The Avatar Returns. It is written by Michael Dante DiMartino, Brian that name, and then some additional writing as well from some other people, and it is directed by Dave Filoni.
Okay. I'm pretty sure we said it in the first part, so obviously you can just check that. I mean, I should say check that out.
It's like part 1 and part 2. It's written and directed by the same people. I just wanted to reiterate.
Yeah. I think we're doing that just for our benefit because it's been a couple weeks. So.
And it aired on February 21st, 2005. Again, same air date as part 1.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So I'm pretty sure, I don't know how they did it, obviously, when they saw it in real time, just because I didn't watch it in real time, but if you watch this on a streaming service or something, they do treat it as if it's 2 parts, because they do like the whole previously what happened on the last episode. The intro's different now. Instead of it being the intro that it was the first time, it's actually like the
now we
intro.
have like, the intro that'll be the next, like, for the whole series.
Yeah. Where Katawa narrates that this war's been going on, but now the only thing that's added is now that the Avatar has been found. You could technically call this a continuity error because she didn't even know he was the Avatar technically until this episode.
Well,
so
this is like, but she finds out at the end of the episode, so technically.
I'm just being funny because technically she didn't know at this point that she was that he was the Avatar. So
and even though it's not said in the show yet, like directly, Aang is the Avatar. It's like pretty clear. Zuko keeps calling him the Avatar. Aang like looks guilty when Katara asks him about the Avatar. It's pretty clear he's the Avatar, even though it's not said until halfway through this episode.
I think we did a disservice. We probably will do this when we do the season reviews. We probably should have watched the trailers to see if they told you he was the Avatar, because obviously it's pretty clear, but I wonder if in the trailers we would have been able to go into it.
No, I remember the commercials for the show, call him the Avatar. I also remember the commercials because they mispronounced Sokka's name.
That's right.
Yeah, in the old Nickelodeon commercials, they called him Sokka.
Yeah, and the movie makes...
The Last Airbender movie, which we will get to, will take that even further by mispronouncing everyone's name.
Yeah, definitely. I'm pretty sure, too...
That's a story for another time.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, too... I think he was meant to be... Was he originally meant to be Soga, but then they changed his name or something? I'm pretty sure that was the case, too. Or was he always going to be Sokka?
I'm not sure, actually.
Because it is spelled the way... It is spelled that way, so you can understand that, but...
Yeah.
That's not excusing the movie, by the way. That's not excusing it at all. Because it's one thing to get that name wrong, but to get like everybody else's name wrong, that's a whole different level type of thing. But yeah, let's continue. Where we left off, Aang and Katara are making their way back to camp, and obviously behind them we see that the flare has gone off, and obviously everybody in the town sees this and everything like that.
Right.
And
so obviously this picks up like right after the last episode.
yeah, Sokka is obviously frustrated and pretty much is upset with Aang because he thinks that he intentionally signaled the Fire Nation. You realize there's a reason I say intentionally because he didn't signal Fire Nation, but he didn't mean
Right. He didn't do it on purpose. And Gran is like, she went from like skeptical of Aang to like full on agreeing with Sokka that Aang's got to go.
Yeah.
And the rest of the village don't really seem to like hate Aang or like think he's a traitor, but they are like scared now.
Yeah, because obviously, because they mentioned that they went on a Fire Nation ship and all that type of stuff, and now they're suspicious because, like, what a coincidence, Aang shows up and Katara's all of a sudden going on Fire Nation ships and all that type of stuff. Like,
yeah. And also, I think it's a continuation of last episode where Aang like introduced himself to the village and they were all like scared of him, or the adults were.
Yeah.
And Katara even points out when she's defending Aang that Aang has brought something that they haven't had in a long time, and that's like hope and fun.
Which I think is cool, nice thing to bring up. And then
and I like because it's not just because like, oh, he's the Avatar. It's his, he just brings hope by being the Avatar. It's I like that he brings hope by being himself.
Yeah.
Like Aang, of course, being the Avatar makes him special, but it's also like Aang himself brings out the good in people.
Yeah, I think it's too cool because, obviously Aang's putting out this thin in people because we don't really talk about it because he was in that iceberg for so long and everything like that. He didn't know about the war and everything like that, so he was into the world as if there was no war going on. So it kind of made people kind of remind themselves like what the world could be like if there was no war. Because
right, and he's also an Airbender, which haven't been around for 100 years, and Airbenders are very like free spirited, fun.
Yeah. When you find out why the next episode.
Yeah. So then Sokka declares that Aang is banished from the tribe.
Yeah. And then Katara is going to go with Aang, obviously, because she's upset. And, Sokka is like, wait a minute, are you really going to pick someone that you've only known for, like, only a few days? Or not even a day at this point?
Yeah, it's been like a day. What a crazy day.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way though with the way over your tribe and your family. And I do like Aang here because Katara doesn't actually make the choice. Aang's even just like, I don't want to become between you and your family. Because even Aang's just kind of like, yeah, you've only known me like a day. Like, this is your family type of thing. Like,
yeah, I do like how Katara just seemed like conflicted on what to do, and Aang didn't even like, he didn't make her choose. He was like, look, I'm not going to come between you guys.
Yeah. So... yeah, they kind of say goodbye. One of the kids, who we never see again, but you could definitely tell this kid has a few lines than the other kids because it's this little girl doesn't look like a typical background character and all that type of stuff. Like she does look different.
She has like the big anime eyes. I remember. I'm like, geez.
Yeah, and she begs Aang not to leave, but obviously there's really nothing that Aang can say, and I do like that there's a funny line here where Katara asks Aang like where he's gonna go. She's like, well, I'm just gonna head back home to the other Airbenders. And then he's just like, I haven't cleaned my room in over 100 years. Not looking forward to that. I don't think it's really clicked with Aang that,
we talked about that last episode where like the revelation seemed to like, like he seemed like not as like just devastated as he should have been.
Yeah. But
I do think this kind of just like leans into the idea that like he hasn't really processed that like everyone he knows and loves is dead.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna make what happens in the next episode like even better that he hasn't processed it yet and all that type of stuff.
Yeah,
so
because like we haven't gone to the whole like air nomad genocide thing yet. But I did always think it was weird that he didn't get that like even if the Airbenders weren't wiped out, everyone he knew would still be dead.
Yeah, because it's like 100 years. So,
yeah.
But I get
as we see, not next episode, but I think the episode after.
Yeah. I think it's I think it will be the next episode for us because we'll be covering it. But it will. It's a few.
Oh, yeah, it's still right. It's Southern Air Temple, Kyoshi, and then Omashu. I think.
Yeah, it is. So, but yeah, it will be next episode. It will be a couple episodes for us.
It'll be next video. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. That happened and stuff like that because it does kind of make sense. Like, would you kind of think? I mean, I know time continues, like, but I don't think you really process. It kind of makes sense when you see Aang as a character develop a lot more and stuff that he wouldn't process that, like, most of the people that he knows would be dead, whether there was a genocide or not, and all that type of stuff. So
yeah. So Aang leaves with Appa. Appa's still not flying, so Sokka like makes a joke about how he still thinks Aang's lying about Appa flying.
This is where I think you could cut. Like, maybe Appa's still tired, but this is kind of, we could say, I think this is just plot convenience more than anything else, that Appa didn't fly this time. I think they wanted to save it for a big reveal type of thing. So
yeah. Well, I mean, we already technically saw him flying in the flashback last episode.
Yeah, but the present we haven't seen him fly yet.
Yeah.
So, but I think this is where it was kind of plot convenience type of thing. So
yeah, I do like how afterwards Gran walks up to Katara. And she's like, being like, you'll feel better in a little bit, like trying to like minimize it.
Yeah.
And Katara immediately just like yells at her and is like, "Are you happy? Now my one chance to like master waterbending is gone."
Yeah, I wonder what would have happened. This could have been the end of the show. Like, Katara would have been just miserable the rest of her life, pretty much, type of thing.
Yeah. I feel bad for Katara. She's been trapped in this tiny village for her whole life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't blame her. She wants to go and like discover herself and she feels like her own family's like like stunting her.
And I feel like it's not
one
of those.
His grandmother doesn't like defend herself after. She just like looks sad.
Yeah, because she kind of realizes. Like, I think she feels bad also. I do like, we see this stuff happen where like, and the main character. Typically it's a woman because they obviously, in this time period, it wasn't very a big thing for women to be able to kind of go and explore the world and all that type of stuff. I do like that this time around, it's just kind of circumstances, more like the people themselves, like holding them back type of thing from traveling the world.
Yeah, we do kind of get that whole like women thing when we actually get to the North Pole, but that we'll get to that.
Yeah, because that's still a bit of ways away.
So literally a whole rest of the season away.
Yeah, Sokka readies the troops for defenses, and it's kind of sad because, like we've talked, I don't think we need to talk about this anymore. But Sokka's really the only line of defense here, just because all of them are kids. Like, one of them's gonna do a joke. Obviously, this is a joke for the thing where he has to go to the bathroom, but Sokka's like, and no party breaks. I do kind of like, it's done for comedy, but it's like Sokka kind of shows how seriously it's like thinking there's like a threat coming for the Fire Nation and all that. Like, really, he's the only line of defense. Really.
By the way, I gotta say, Sokka's dad's a little shitty because like he literally brought all of like the grown men. Yeah, and like he just left Sokka in charge.
Yeah,
and it's like, all right, okay, so like if Aang wasn't around and the Fire Nation just decided to come back to be assholes, like, all right, Sokka's dad's gonna come back and find everyone dead, and he's like, oh shit, I probably shouldn't have left a 13-year-old in charge.
Sokka was the only line of defense. Like, we'll talk about it when we get there. He's lucky that it was. I mean, I'm not saying Zuko's bad or anything like that, but Zuko just went there just to get the Avatar. Like, I don't think he like. We'll talk about it when we get to this scene, but luckily it wasn't like, I don't know, like, what if like I'm not saying this would happen. What if like the Fire Lord came over here? Like, he would have like killed everybody.
Well,
like,
right, yeah, not even just like a random Fire Nation captain was just like, you know what? I'm gonna be a dick and attack the South Pole again.
Yeah, that random Fire Nation captain could have been the next episode because he's technically not even a commander yet or whatever he was. But
I think he's Lieutenant Zhao. Yeah, we'll get to him. But we get a scene of both Zuko, or actually before that we see Aang and Appa just chilling on like chilling quite literally.
Yeah,
on, like an ice sculpture. And it's cool. It's like circle shaped, and we saw them in the background of last episode.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And obviously, Aang's upset because he basically doesn't think he's ever going to see Katara or anybody else ever again. And then he sees.
We established Aang has like a crush on Katara.
Yep. And then Aang sees the Fire Nation ship roll by, and Aang obviously sees this. I could kind of believe that Aang would just happen to be in this area when this happened, just because I think they did establish that it's a small village, so I can kind of believe, obviously, that Aang would have just happened to see it. You could say. I
mean, I'm more surprised that he's just kind of hanging out after he left, but like again, like Appa's like still tired and can't fly.
Yeah.
So I mean, it does make sense. Like Aang kind of just like go away from the village and then chill out until Appa's ready to fly.
Yeah, and I can believe, obviously, like I said, like Aang saw that, like it wasn't like because they did establish that the village is small and everything like that. So
Yeah.
they
and
did,
also they're in the middle of a frozen wasteland, so like a Fire Nation ship would probably like
stand out. Yeah,
hard to miss.
Yeah. So yeah, like we said, they do a big montage of Sokka and Zuko gearing up for obviously Sokka to defend the Fire Nation, Zuko to get the Avatar. I thought this was kind of cool because we talked about how they're both have like a similar background and all that type of stuff.
Oh yeah, we didn't actually bring it up in the video. I don't think. I think we just talked about it off camera. But as we find out later, like both Sokka and Zuko are like parallel to each other in this. Like they're essentially just trying to like fit the roles they think their fathers want them to be in. Yeah. Zuko's trying to be this like, ruthless firebender hunting the Avatar, and Sokka's trying to be like this big, strong, brave warrior. Thinks his dad wants him to be.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought that was kind of cool. Like this montage of them gearing up to, do what their fathers would have wanted them to do. I thought this was kind of a cool montage.
I think it's also nice because like they don't usually wear these outfits. Like Zuko doesn't usually wear the Fire Nation helmet and like extra armor. Yeah, and Sokka doesn't usually wear the war paint.
Yeah, I think this is
I think it is literally them like putting on costumes. Like this isn't who they really are.
Yeah, I think because this is the only time they really wear these outfits. I think Zuko does wear it in the
Zuko wears the helmet like a couple more times, but like it's pretty rare.
Yeah, Sokka, I don't think it ever gears up like this. I think he probably does for the invasion, but I think that's it afterwards.
I don't think he wears face paint for the invasion. I think he wears a helmet.
Oh, okay. So yeah, this is like I think this is
Sokka is wearing it in a flashback to when his dad left.
That's probably what I was thinking of, but yeah, I think this is really cool that they basically put it on costumes and being the people that their fathers wanted them to be. So, yeah, Sokka's up on the watchtower. He's not inside the watchtower, like the actual structure. He's just standing on like the wall of it, type of thing. Mm-hmm. And obviously, the ship starts to come in, and it's like it's as if an earthquake's about to hit and all that type of stuff. Like everything's falling apart. They do a funny thing with Sokka, the brunt of the joke, where his watchtower falls again. And he's just like, "Oh man!" And I guess I feel like Sokka knew the Fire Nation ship was coming, but if you think about it, it kind of makes sense that he has the reaction that he has because yes, he did see the Fire Nation. We do find out like actually attack and everything like that, but he was also really young then and didn't have to defend it. I think it kind of makes sense he would have the action that he had. Plus, he was like this closer to the ship, like probably no closer than I am to my laptop right now. That's how close he was to the spot.
We see it was really misty, so to him, it's like being on the road and all of a sudden the truck's like 5 feet in front of you,
Yeah. So
except instead of a truck, it's a literal warship.
Yeah, and luckily the ship stops like right in front of him, and then. The tower.
Well, actually, we see it collapses the snow wall, so it pushes Sokka away.
Yeah, and then there's not a funny scene, but there's a scene where one of the kids gets trapped in because the ice starts to break around the village, and one of the kids gets trapped in it, and Katara has to run up and grab one of the kids and put him into I
like how you said it's a funny moment, haha, that child almost died.
That was clearly a mess up right there. So
yeah.
But then, the ship opens up, and this is our we mentioned this off camera, but this is the first fight scene ever in Avatar, which is, I think, kind of crazy that, because we'll talk about this, how it's kind of fitting that Sokka's in the first fight scene, because in a sense, we'll talk about it more as we go on. He becomes kind of like a war criminal throughout the episode.
Oh, yeah. We have a whole video planned for once we actually get done with the show, how Sokka has a kill count in the fucking thousands.
So it's kind of fitting that Sokka's in the first fight scene of the show. It's not much of a fight scene, obviously, but it's still a fight scene nonetheless. But he, Zuko, and basically two random military people that it's on his ship crew. I'm pretty sure you could just call them 1B and 1A and 1B, just because I think it's probably interchangeable. I doubt that it's even the same.
Yeah, they're just random foot soldiers Zuko has.
Yeah. They never have I feel like we do see one of them has a character in the Storm episode, but I think that's like the only character, and obviously other than his uncle, obviously. But
yeah, we don't really get much on like Zuko's crew except for like that one episode in the Storm.
Yeah, and I think it was obviously it was more just so that way we could find out about Zuko's backstory more than
and it's interesting because I always wondered like, okay, so it hasn't been revealed that Zuko's banished at this point.
Yeah.
It's just like we just know something's up with him.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because it mentioned like his father, grandfather, great grandfather all looked for the Avatar.
Absolutely.
And he said like their honor didn't depend on it. So we know something like is motivating him, but we don't know exactly what.
Yeah. I was about to say I don't think we know he's Fire Lord, but I think we do because they keep mentioning that because they keep calling him Prince Zuko and everything like that. So we know that his father's the Fire.
Yeah, we know he's the prince, but we don't know like he's banished and like all that shit.
Yeah.
But like once we do find out, I always wondered like, are these soldiers just like stuck with him forever? You know, like because like Ozai never intended Zuko to come home.
Yeah.
So were these soldiers just like, okay, I guess we're just on this ship forever now?
Yeah, like I wonder if there was like a ransom or something.
Like swap out every now and again.
Yeah, I wonder if Zuko also put out like a ransom. Obviously, like if he finds the Avatar, like obviously. Like, would he pay the money type of thing? Like, would he make sure, like, they would have good lives?
Yeah, he's the one who gets it, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know what...
That's more of a thing for future episodes, but it is just something I wanted to point out since we were on the topic of, like, Zuko's henchmen.
Yeah, so that is kind of interesting. And like you said, too, obviously they never do an episode like this. This is a little bit of a spoiler, but we never find out, like, how he gets these people. They're just kind of with him type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, presumably, like, his dad, like, put together, like, a skeleton crew for him.
Yeah. So, I guess one of them wasn't, though, just because... I guess they knew Zuko had to find the Avatar. They just didn't know why he had to find the Avatar, probably, too.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I'm just saying, like, we don't know, like, the specifics. But just, like, presumably his dad gave him some soldiers and sent them off, but we don't really know much more than that.
Yeah. I assume, if I had to guess, I probably what the shoulders thought was Fire Lord Ozai wanted the Avatar found. They didn't go into the specifics of, like, why Zuko had to find him and stuff, but, like, they were probably just thinking they had to find the Avatar, if I'm just making a guess type of thing. Like, yeah. They probably thought it was, like, a side mission for, like, the Fire Lord or something like that. I know it's weird that they mentioned it's a side mission type of thing. Like, you think that'd be like the main mission to find the Avatar.
Well, Iroh points out that it's been 100 years and like most people don't even think the Avatar is still around.
So maybe they thought it was just kind of like just in case the Avatar just happens to, which is what happens anyways, but just in case the Avatar just happens to show up out of nowhere type of thing.
Yeah, basically. But Zuko marches down with his men. And Sokka immediately, like Sokka's got some balls on him.
Yeah,
he immediately runs up to Zuko, but in like a slapstick scene, Zuko kind of just like kicks him away, and he falls into the pile of snow, and he's like stuck there, and he's like trying to kick out.
He's like he falls head first too. Like it was like it's like you looked at this as a cartoon. Like Sokka would have been like dead if he not maybe dead, but like he fell like head first, and his head's like stuck into like the snow.
Yeah, well, he fell into a pile of snow, so like I mean he's probably fine. But he's like it's like you just see his feet sticking out like he's kicking, trying to get out. Like poor guy.
Yeah,
he's waited for this moment for years to like prove himself as a warrior, and he's just getting clowned on.
And again, this does make sense because Sokka was the only line of defense, and he wasn't obviously experienced yet. So it does make sense that Zuko would immediately kick his ass. And it obviously makes more sense because obviously Zuko, you find out like since we're doing this in hindsight, we find out Zuko's trained in swordsman and fighting and all that type of stuff. It makes sense that Zuko was just kind of able to kick his ass and stuff.
Yeah, and also like Sokka's only like 15. We looked up his age last time. I don't remember what it was.
I think we said 13. I think we said he was 13. So.
No,
I think 15. I think it was 15, yeah.
Yeah, Katara's 14 or 13. Sokka's 15.
Yeah, so that does make sense that Sokka would get his ass kicked. Again, he probably doesn't have the proper training either because his dad's been away for so long, too. So he's basically been, if you think about it, training himself for defense and all that type of stuff.
He does get, like, right back up, though, pretty much. Like, although Zuko goes up to the villagers and, like, Zuko thinks, Zuko doesn't know about the iceberg and, like, Aang being a kid and all that shit. So he thinks like the Avatar has been like hiding in this small village for 100 years.
Yeah.
And Zuko's like, where is he? and nobody knows what he's talking about. He grabs Sokka and Katara's grandmother, and he's like shaking her, and he's like, he should be about this age, master of all the elements.
We should mention it's interesting that Zuko thinks it's a dude right away, because we find out later on that the Avatar isn't always necessarily a guy. So
So it is weird that he assumes that it's a guy.
Yeah.
But then Zuko just like pushes Grand back into the crowd, and she's like, they're all terrified.
Yeah, and then Sokka finally gets up. He's about to take Zuko's head off with the spear, but it fails. Zuko ducks. He breaks the spear. Actually, it wasn't the spear. It was a sword. And then one of the kids gives him the spear.
It was his club. And then Zuko like throws him over the shoulder. Then a kid throws him his spear.
And then Sokka tries to take him out with the spear. I think before this he throws his boomerang, and then he tries to take him out with the spear, but that doesn't succeed, and he breaks the spear. And then basically there's nothing
Sokka. Music is playing as he's like charging with the spear, and Zuko just like breaks it and like in half and like pushes him to the ground.
Yeah, I do think.
And he like plops him on the head with the spear because Sokka gets payback later in the episode.
And later on, and this is like the same thing that Sokka did to Aang, like to try to wake him up when he came from the iceberg. So it's kind of cool that it happens to Sokka here.
Right. I didn't even remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Sokka basically, I think, realizes there's nothing more he can do at this point. So he doesn't necessarily submit, but he just kind of stays down at that point. And then his boomerang comes back and hits Zuko in the back of the head with it, and this just pisses him off. I do think there's something to be said, by the way, because before, I think had Sokka not done anything, I don't think Zuko was going there to like hurt anybody. I think he was just going to get the Avatar, and leave.
Well, yeah, threaten everyone, but he probably wouldn't have he got really pissed off with Sokka because he got hit with the boomerang, and then he like lit his fire up, so like he was probably gonna kill Sokka.
Yeah, but I think had Sokka not done anything, probably, I think he would have just probably just fought the Avatar and then leave. I think because I think we should say that does, even though Zuko's meant to be the villain, that does kind of show like he's not necessarily like a bad guy.
He's not just like killing random people just because it's fun.
Yeah.
And even though the whole fight is like comedic and like it's showing Sokka isn't like all that tough. Kudos to Sokka. Like, he still didn't give up. He kept trying, and he got a good clean hit on Zuko.
He did, yeah. I do think
if Zuko wasn't wearing that helmet, he probably would have fucking been knocked out.
Yeah. I remember he did get his ass kicked, but I think he does better than a lot of people give him credit for, I think. Like, it's not like a complete ass, like, yes, it is a complete ass kicking, but it's not like, you see someone, like, immediately get defeated. Like, you'll see, like, in Danny Phantom, you'll see, like, I wouldn't say it's like when Danny fought Vlad the first time. Like, I don't think it's that bad type of thing. Like, Danny got destroyed in that one.
Like, Danny wasn't even close. Like, here, I mean, it wasn't really close here. But, like, again, Sokka, he got a clean hit on Zuko. You got to give him that.
Yeah. And then...
And just, like, later on in the show, like, people are like, Sokka, he's, like, not that tough. But keep in mind, Sokka's, like, standing next to, like, the best benders in the world.
Yeah.
It's like having, like, a really strong guy standing next to, like, Mike Tyson, Bruce Lee, and, like, Superman.
Yeah.
It's like, of course, he doesn't seem that tough comparatively, but he's still, like, way better than the average person.
And again, Sokka was like, I think we talked about this off camera, but we never really answered the question. Do you think Sokka knew he was going to get his ass kicked, but just felt like, his dad wanted him to defend the village, so he just was doing what his dad wanted him? Because that's what I think was the case. I think Sokka had a feeling he was probably going to get his ass kicked. Probably not this bad, but I definitely think he at least wanted to try to defend the village type of thing. I think that's what
I don't think he really thought about it. I think he was just more like, okay, they're going to come. I'm going to be the one to defend the village. Like, I don't think he really thought, like, the whole thing through.
Yeah, definitely. He probably didn't expect that it was going to be like, I mean, I don't even think they know he's the prince. I don't think they expected it was going to be like the prince of like the Fire Nation and stuff like that, like coming for the village type of thing. So then after this,
like, even if Sokka did somehow kill Zuko, like, they still have like a whole ship full of firebenders.
Yeah, so
like Sokka was never gonna like be the, even if Aang wasn't around and like it was Sokka versus the whole ship, like he's not winning that fight.
yeah. And then eventually after this happens, Aang penguin sleds down the mountain and completely takes out Zuko. And at this point, we should mention that this is at the point where Sokka kind of finally realizes like Aang's not part of the Fire Nation, because obviously he came and helped defend the Fire Nation. And Sokka's kind of not happy about it. Like he does admit he's won, but he does kind of like feel like an asshole. He also just got his ass kicked too, so that's why.
Oh yeah, he's like still on the ground, and Aang's like, "Hey, Sokka, you okay?" And Sokka's like, "Hey, Aang, thanks for coming." Like he just sounds like monotone and like embarrassed.
Yeah, I think he's embarrassed because he just got his ass kicked, and
that like Aang had to come save him.
Yeah, and I think he's also like, but yeah.
Well, I'm glad he's not holding a grudge. Like last episode kind of painted Sokka as like an asshole and like the antagonist. But this episode really does a good job showing Sokka's like good points.
Yeah.
And like later on, he's the one who wants to go rescue Aang.
Yeah. And then Aang even says, Aang asks Zuko, well, before that, he airbends the snow like all around, and it takes out the army and Zuko and stuff. I thought that was a pretty cool scene. Everyone's cheering. I do like too, because there's like 3 kids cheering, and then they get the snow put on them, and they do this funny scene where like they just stop cheering, and then they just cheer, the snow comes off them. I thought that was really funny. That was hilarious.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. Although Zuko, he lost a couple cool points getting penguin sledded, but he immediately like burns the snow off.
Yep.
And then Aang says, "You're looking for me." And then
Zuko says,
like, "You're him. You're the Avatar."
And this was pretty cool. Katara and Sokka and all the villagers are surprised about this. And I guess we don't really think about it, because I think we already knew that Aang was the Avatar, but this is a bigger scene than you think. Like, it goes to commercial break. It makes sense. Like, this is actually like the reveal when they actually tell us, like, yes, Aang's the Avatar type of thing. Like,
this is the first time it's like acknowledged in the show.
Yeah.
Well,
so
if you don't count the intro.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. Like, it's actually a bigger scene than you think it is. Like, it's a really cool scene. Zuko's surprised about this because, like, he's been training all this time thinking he was going to face, like, an old man and all that type of stuff. And Aang's just like, I do like Aang's comeback here. He's like, "You're just a child." And Aang's just like, "Well, you're just a teenager," which even that's crazy. We talked about that Zuko's only a teenager type of thing. I don't think we need to mention that, because I think we talked about that a lot. Like,
oh, by the way, Zuko's like, "I've been training years to, face a master of all the elements." Zuko, you should be so happy that Aang is Aang's a child and he still kicks his ass.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think
like Zuko, if you had to fight like a fully fledged, like mastering all the elements Avatar, you're gonna die. Like Zuko would get his ass kicked worse than Sokka got his ass kicked.
Yeah, probably. So they start fighting. This is pretty cool. This is like the first like fight where it's a bender versus a bender type of thing. So that's pretty cool. Aang's like using his airbender to blow away the fire. And
it doesn't last very long though, but it's you got to fit a lot into this like 25-minute episode, so
yeah, and this is a lot of stuff type of thing too.
And like they fight later on in the episode, so like this fight is like like 30 seconds.
Yeah, and then Aang stops, and the villagers get all scared because Aang's like right in front of the villagers when this fight's going on too. So.
Right, he's like blowing he's using his staff to blow the fire away, but like it's like almost hitting the villagers, and he realizes like, oh, if this fight like drags on, they're gonna end up getting hurt.
So Aang agrees, like if he goes with Aang makes a deal with Zuko that if he goes with him, if he asks if he leaves everyone alone, and Zuko agrees, and basically they take Aang and they leave the village. And I do like that show that Aang was a good person because, he was willing basically to, be in jail the rest of his life.
He tells Katara's like worried about him. He's like, "Don't worry, Katara, I'll be okay."
Yeah.
But then we see as like the doors closing, like he's smiling for her. But like as the ship doors closing, we see him like for a second like worried.
Yeah.
So he's like acting tough to like make sure Katara and everyone else is okay.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. Yeah, like basically giving them hope that he'll be back and all that type of stuff. And yeah, I do think this showed like Aim was a good person just because and like a good character just because like he was basically willing to be in prison the rest of his life just for the villagers to be okay. So I thought that was a good
or
thing.
probably killed, honestly. Well, I don't know.
They
Later
probably
on, he
wouldn't
gets
kill.
captured, and Zhao's like, we don't want to kill you because then the Avatar will like reincarnate.
Yeah, so who knows what would have happened. But yeah, the Zuko leads with Aang, and then it cuts to the next scene. Katara basically is talking and talks to just trying to basically convince Sokka to save Aang, and she's convincing him, saying, "I know you don't like Aang, but he did come and save us even after you banished him." And you see Sokka like doing stuff in the background, and then when Sokka says Katara, she turns around and says, "Are you gonna keep talking, or are you gonna come with me?" And basically, Sokka, I liked this because Sokka was already going to go save Aang anyways, even if Katara wasn't going to talk him into it. It's meant to be done for comedy, but I do like that, that it showed that Sokka, had changed his mind about Aang, even if Katara wasn't going to give the speech anyways, type of thing. So I thought that was good. I do that. Isn't that really noticeable in Avatar: The Last Airbender? Even the scenes that are done for comedy have a lot of thought put into them and all that type of stuff. Like,
yeah. Like, as I said earlier, this episode does a good job showing, like, Sokka is, like, a good person.
Yeah. And Grant comes up, and, it's kind of like one of those parent things, like, what are you doing? And they're trying to act like they're not up to anything. And obviously Grant convinces them to go. She gives them sleeping bags, and, she mentions to Katara
Well,
that...
it's funny. I think they were just planning to, like, get him away from the Fire Nation and then come back.
Yeah.
But Grant was like giving him sleep bags, like, you have a long journey, like you're gonna help him like master the elements.
Yeah, so I think she, that is true. I was thinking like when I saw this, like they didn't want them to know that they were gonna go save Aang just because they wouldn't want him to go face like the Fire Nation just because of what they saw what just happened and everything.
Oh yeah. Where they were like hiding the boat, like they thought the Grant was gonna like try and stop them, but Grant like encourages them to go to the extra mile.
Yeah.
And like not just rescue him this one time, but like go with him all the way.
Yeah, that does make more sense because I was actually going to make the joke, like, did they think they didn't save Aang? Because I thought that she just wanted to go save Aang and then come back, but I guess they did say a long journey ahead of you. Because I was thinking a long journey ahead of you because obviously the whole thing that Katara says is we're never going to catch the Fire Nation, the Firebender ship with this.
Oh, yeah, with that tiny boat, yeah.
So that's why I was thinking, like, she was thinking they were going to, that's why I was thinking she didn't necessarily say you have a long, because that was going to take a while to even catch the Fire Nation ship anyways. Type of thing.
I love the idea of like, I go down to like the gas station and my dad's like, you have a long journey ahead of you. And I'm like, it's like 10 minutes.
Yeah. But this actually legitimately was a long journey though, type of thing.
Oh yeah. Well, it lasts three more seasons in universe, like almost a year.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, good thing they had Appa. We'll talk about
that. They
that.
Come back to the South Pole and Grant's fucking dead.
Yeah. And then, she gives like a nice motivational speech here, which I think is good for her, just because this is the last scene we actually see of Grant.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of disappointed, I should say, just because like I wish they could have brought her, not necessarily, like at least for the last episode.
she's one of the group. She's fighting the Fire Nation with them.
Yeah. But
Imagine in like the finale, Sozin's Comet. You know that shot of like Aang facing down Ozai?
Yeah, it's just Grant's
like next to him, like, all right, Aang, let's do this 2v1.
But like, I wish they would have brought it back at least like after the war was over and everything like that.
Yeah. I wish we got like a longer epilogue. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So pretty much, she gives like this big speech with Katara talking about how she brought back hope to the village and everything like that with Aang and everything like that, convincing them. And then she just I do like the speech she gives to Sokka where she just says, be nice to your sister. Like she gives this Katara this big motivational speech and everything like that. Katara just gets the be nice to your sister bit and all that type of stuff. So again, it's not really shitting on Sokka, obviously, but it still like shows like Sokka's kind of the comedy relief there type of thing.
Yeah.
So then this is when they realize, that they're not going to catch the Fire Nation ship with, and I do like, she also mentions too, like they found Aang for a reason type of thing. Like, all that.
Yeah, like because Destiny's like a big thing in Avatar.
Yeah, so they realize they're not going to catch the. And again, this is the last scene we see of Gran, like, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, she has a heart attack right after this and dies. Oh, well.
Yeah. And then they mention they're not going to be able to catch the Fire Nation on a tiny canoe ship. And then Appa walks up, and Katara just realizes that there's right Appa. And I really like what Sokka says here when he says, "You just love taking me out of my comfort zone, don't you?" Just because, like, Sokka, throughout the first 2 parts, was out of his comfort zone a lot because he had to fight the Fire Nation, like, by himself, and then he had to fight Appa, like, the first time. So.
Yeah, and he said it really good after meeting Aang. He's like, airbenders, magic, flying bisons. I want to go back home to where stuff makes sense.
Yeah, so he's basically out of his comfort zone. And then... and
later on in the episode, he's like, I'm just a guy with a boomerang. I didn't ask for all this flying and magic.
Yeah, so I do think the road, because Sokka basically, goes and he sees all this stuff, like Earthbend.
Sokka literally is the normal guy, fighting like all these like demigods and like doing all this crazy magic crap.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. And then it cuts to Aiden with Zuko. And it kind of kicks it like a brutal line that I think as a kid I didn't really think of it as anything, but then it's like a blow to the gut when I watch it as an adult. Where Zuko mentions that he's basically gonna give Ain's staff to his father as like a gift, and then he mentions Ain, you wouldn't know anything about parents being raised by monks. Like that's like a low blow right there. Like that was kind of it kind of went over my head as a kid, obviously, because I didn't know like monks didn't really have parents and all that. Like they have parents, obviously, but they don't really like have.
Aang just like grew out of the ground like a cabbage. But it's interesting. This is the only reference to Aang's parents in the whole show, and I believe in the next episode of the Southern Air Temple in the Avatar extras, with the pop-up trivia, they said that they planned on making an episode about like what happened to Aang's parents, but they scrapped it.
Okay. Is there like a way we can find the pop-up? Probably not anymore, right? Because you probably have to watch it like on TV type of thing.
I could probably. I'm sure there's like a screenshot out of it on Google.
Yeah, but that's pretty cool. That like when
we do the book one review, we'll definitely like look up all the pop-ups.
But that is cool that they were going to make an episode like that. I can kind of understand why they didn't, just because I don't think it's really necessary. Like I don't think.
And like as Zuko says here, like Aang probably never knew his parents.
So I really wouldn't have, So then, Zuko has Aang brought to what they call it, like the prison hold, pretty much, and he asks Ivo to take the staff to his quarters, which I think is like his room at in the ship and all that type of stuff. And Ivo he's starting to fully formed his character, so he's kind of comedic relief to like Zuko type of thing, which I think makes sense. And he says, would you mind taking this to his quarters for me? And it's just some random guy that he has to do that. So then the prisoners are about to take Aang to, not the prisoners, but the...
like the holding cell.
Yeah. I meant to say the crew is about to take Aang to, the holding cell. And Aang says, so I bet you never fought an Airbender before. Let me see if I can take you guys with both hands tied behind my back. And when the guy's about to unlock the prison hold, Aang blows.
Right, he says silence, and I'm pretty sure it's like the only time anyone on Zuko's crew, except for that like one guy in the Storm episode, talks.
Yeah, so that's pretty fun. Well, the other guy talks too behind him because he goes up and mentions that the Avatar's escaped. So that guy does talk. So there was a couple more, but then Aang blows like a big gust of wind at him, and obviously because he's an Airbender, the guy slams front first into the door, and then
Aang like propels himself backwards into the guy behind him, onto a staircase. Like, oh, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah.
And then like Aang like does a flip, and he's like going around the ship.
Yeah, and I think this is why I did say like I think what Aang's plan here was he was trying to get like far away enough from the village so that way if he was gonna get hunted, at least he wouldn't get hunted to the village. He was probably going to go far enough away. I think that was Aang's plan here. He was just going to do this so that way, Zuko wouldn't hurt the villagers. So I think this was probably Aang's plan all along. So I do like that,
And Aang brings up a really good point that like makes sense for like the rest of the series. That like no one has fought an Airbender for 100 years, so like no one knows like how they fight or like how they do things.
Yeah, so I thought that's really cool.
And airbending is pretty different from the rest. Where like airbending is mostly about like evasion and like dodging and making your opponents like attack, like hurt themselves, basically.
Yeah, I do think it kind of sucks. He still uses it a lot in the show, but kind of once he starts to use like earth and water, he kind of uses those elements more. He doesn't use airbending as much, I would say. Like obviously he does it for
well,
like
actually,
the stuff.
a complaint I have for later on in the show is he doesn't really use water that much.
Oh yeah, that one I was going to complain about later, but I do think he uses his airbending a little bit less.
True.
I would say like he probably uses earthbending probably the most once he kind of masters that, which is kind of weird because we find out that's like the opposite.
That's like his worst element, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, I can understand why he doesn't use fire as much because I think he was still like learning.
He only learns it like halfway through the last season.
Yeah, and I think he was like learning it like right before the comet arrived, pretty much. So that kind of makes sense why he doesn't use that. That much.
I mean, Aang even points out in the finale that like he hasn't mastered firebending.
Yeah. So.
It's never actually said in the show, but airbenders get their tattoos when they master airbending.
Yep. That was which.
So Aang has already mastered air.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure does he have a master Earth? Because I remember there's an episode where Toph mentioned that his Earthbender could even use.
Well, it's funny. I just brought that up where Aang says he hasn't mastered firebending, and then right after Toph's like, honestly, your Earthbending could use some work too.
Yeah, so I don't think he really masters Earthbending either. So.
I wouldn't even fully say he mastered water, honestly.
Yeah. It's kind of lucky he met... I know, again, this is spoiler, but it's kind of lucky he meets that sea turtle, because if he didn't have that... Who knows what would have happened if he didn't have that, thing where he could take the bending away type of thing.
Well, because, this whole show happens over, 9 months or, almost a year.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say Aang really masters any of the elements. I would say he just has a good grasp on it.
I would say so, yeah.
And it makes sense. He's gonna live. He's only 12 or 13. He has the whole rest of his life to master them.
Yeah. So Aang, starts making his way through the ship to get his staff, and he meets a couple of people that are just carrying swords, and he runs he likes around them. He runs through one of the guy's legs. He runs up towards the wall of the ship. And I do kind of like what happens here. I just mentioned this, when Aang meets an opponent, he doesn't actually hurt any of these people. He just kind of dodges them and all that type of stuff, which I think
right. Like I said earlier, airbending is a lot about evasion.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see Aang just running around his opponents.
And it also makes sense for his character, that he doesn't hurt any of these people and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, so. It is a kid's show, so it helps having the main character not constantly punching the shit out of people.
Yeah, and then he meets one of these other guys. I think this is the last guy he meets before Zuko. He also has a sword. He has a helmet on his head with a bunch of pointers and all that type of stuff. And Aang jumps over this guy, and one of the sharp blades on his helmet, he ends up catching the rope onto it, and it ends up freeing him of being tied up and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. And Aang's running around the ship, checking each room.
Yeah.
And then there's a funny scene where he goes into Iroh's room, and Iroh's sleeping, and he slowly closes the door and is sorry.
It's really, yeah.
Because he's looking for his staff because he wants to take it and fly off.
Yeah. And then he gets into Zuko's quarters, we find out, and he finds his staff, and Zuko slams the door behind him. He's kind of a lot of a horror movie character here. He kind of pops up out of nowhere at a lot of times.
Oh yeah, because we find out Zuko's hiding behind the door. Aang runs in to get the staff, and then Zuko just slams it shut.
Yeah. So he's looks like an
yeah. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
Yeah. And he says, "Looked like I underestimated you." And they have this is the first full fight, I would say, of Avatar: The Last Airbender, where it's it's fairly even supposedly, and it's not a comedic fight type of thing, and that's the first.
It ends kind of comedically, which I think is a little underwhelming, considering Zuko is the main villain of book 1.
Yeah, but still,
we get a little comedy with him back in the village where Aang hits him with the penguin.
Yeah.
But for the most part, this fight's really cool. We see Aang using the air scooter for the first time,
which is cool. And I think this does kind of, he like rides around Zuko and stuff. Like Zuko's trying to blast him with firebending and stuff. I do think this kind of is a nice callback because I will mention that Zuko didn't have patience, so that's why, like, he's not able to really take out Aang with his firebending because he doesn't really have the patience that I was talking about and all that.
Oh yeah, Aang is like perfect counter for Zuko because Zuko is just like flailing wildly, and Aang is like all about like evading.
Yeah, and you can see Aang has patience and all that type of stuff. Like if you notice, he doesn't blast him with airbending. You can see like he's kind of standing behind him, and he never actually like. Blast him. He's just kind of waited for his moment to strike and all.
And we saw it a bit when Aang was running around the ship earlier with his hands tied. But it was really cool when he's on the air scooter. He can like go up walls in the ceiling.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like he's like Spider-Man, just crawling all around.
It's kind of funny because we don't even know it's the air scooter at this point. So this is even a cooler scene. Like the air scooter pretty much is he just takes like a ball of air pretty much, and he literally goes onto the ball of air type of thing.
Like the air scooter is one of Aang's main things. So seeing him use it for the first time is interesting. We find out later he invented the air scooter.
Yeah. When do we find that out? Oh, I remember the storm. It was the storm.
Yeah. Speaking of Aang having his airbending tattoos, I think it was in one of the pop-ups. I think that like there's like 30 something like airbending techniques, and like when you master them all, you get your tattoos.
Yep.
Aang mastered like all of them but one, but then he invented the air scooter. So like inventing technique like granted him his tattoos.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So it really shows that Aang is like a prodigy.
Yeah, and then eventually Aang grabs like one of these like decorative like scrolls that's like hanging up on the wall and wraps Zuko around in it. Yeah, and he flaps Zuko around in it. And then he when Zuko gets out of it, he uses his airbend and he blows the mattress.
While Zuko's tied up, he quickly like runs over and grabs his staff.
Yep, and then
Zuko like burns out of it. So the wrapping it up wasn't really to defeat Zuko. It was more of like get him off his back for a second so he can go grab his staff.
Yeah, which I thought was cool. And then he blows the mattress into him and then slams him. With the I do like that he did the mattress because I don't think he wanted to hurt Zuko necessarily. I think he just wanted to get Zuko damage
well,
enough.
This like standoff for a second. You're like, oh, what's gonna happen? And then like Aang like pushes the air mattress into the wall.
Yeah.
Zuko falls and then he like slams him into the roof. It is pretty brutal, but like I said, I feel like it's a little too slapsticky. Like Zuko is meant to be like the main threat of this season.
Mm-hmm.
Like him and Zhao. So it is a little disappointing that he's like kind of being made a joke of in episode 2.
Yeah, that is kind of disappointing.
Like I wish it was a bit more threatening in these episodes.
Yeah. And then eventually Aang's about to fly away in his glider. This is the first time he uses his glider of the whole show, right? I mean, he doesn't really get to use it much. He did use it last episode.
Showing the kids how he can fly.
Yeah, so he's about to fly off with his glider, and then.
Before that, we get a scene with Katara and Sokka on Appa.
Oh yeah, because it happens right before this.
Right, because this is kind of important. If we didn't bring it up, it'd be like, wow, they just showed up out of nowhere.
I think it got because I'm pretty sure because I don't remember exactly what happens because I do remember this. Yeah, because they I think because it's like
while Aang's running around the ship.
So we should just talk about it now. You want to talk about it because I've been taking all of the fight scenes and stuff. So
yeah, sure. Katara and Sokka are riding on Appa. Appa's still just swimming in the water, and Sokka's just like sarcastically like, oh wow, we're really flying, and he's like, up, go, fly away. And Katara is much more like hopeful, which makes sense. Like she's like the hopeful, optimistic one, and Sokka's the more like cynical one.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "Come on, Appa, don't you want to save Aang? I know you can fly. I know you can do it." And I do like how even though Sokka was like joking about like what to say to make Appa fly, he was like legitimately being like, "What did that kid say?" Like, yeehaw, yahoo, yip, yip. So
Yeah, I
like,
don't
even though
even.
Sokka was like being an asshole, kind of like he was like legitimately trying to help in his own weird way.
I do kind of like too. He doesn't really remember that he says yep yep. I think it just kind of came like he was just kind of going through all that stuff, and then yep yep just kind of was the one that came to him and all that type of stuff. Like,
Right, and like he doesn't fully believe like Appa can fly, so he doesn't think it'll really do anything.
yeah,
And he
and
only
then
heard Aang say it like twice, so like it makes sense he didn't fully remember.
yeah, because that isn't an easy thing to remember type of thing.
Yeah.
And
But
yeah,
we find out because we heard Aang say it twice, but like we didn't know that like that's like what he has to say to make Appa fly.
yep, and yeah,
But,
he flies.
Yep.
And it's actually a pretty big scene. Like they a lot of music plays around it. They treat this as a bigger scene, which it should be. Even though we saw him fly in the flashback and stuff, like it's still a pretty big scene that happens.
Right. And it makes sense because we'll be seeing a lot of Appa flying later in the show.
Yeah.
For the rest of the show.
Sometimes not even just that. Sometimes episodes end. A lot of the episodes end like in the beginning in book 1 with them just flying away on Appa type of thing. So it makes sense. And Sokka is just losing it. I think he's basically like us as fans, like, oh my gosh, you can actually fly type of thing.
Yeah.
And it makes sense.
He turns to Katara and she's just like smugly smiling at him.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah, you can fly, whatever. Cool.
But it didn't make sense. I thought this scene's like really well done. The way that it happened and everything like that. I do like that it was Sokka that got him to fly too. I think that made a lot of sense too, just because.
Yeah, because like his whole thing is like he's skeptical of all this stuff. So him being the one up the fly and him being like excited and happy when he finally does it is a nice little payoff.
And then back to the actual thing. I guess it kind of makes sense that we kind of talk about it here, just because like it's connected and stuff. But Aang's about to take off on his glider, and this is a cool scene. Zuko pops up like out of nowhere, like jumps him into the air and takes.
Aang. Well, same thing with the Appa thing. It's like the music's playing and looks triumphant. Aang's like getting away.
Yeah,
and like Aang is like a good couple feet away from where he took off. Like he's like in the air.
Yeah,
and Zuko like superhuman jumped and like barely grabbed onto Aang's foot and like dragged him down back to the ship.
Yeah, it was insane.
Like it's really cool, like seeing Zuko like going like that extreme to like make sure Aang doesn't get away.
Yeah, and you'll find out it doesn't make a lot of sense when you find out why that's the case and all that type of stuff. I do think that's kind of it did make up for the fact of how slapstick and stuff like it did kind of make up for it a little bit. I think.
Yeah, showing how like determined and resilient Zuko is like a big highlight for this episode.
And then, they have like a standoff, and then Appa flies in, and I like Zuko's reaction because he's never seen a flying bison before or anything like that, so he just is like, "What is that?" Like I thought that was because Appa wasn't there before when he invaded the village and all that type of stuff, so it makes sense.
Appa was still hanging out in the background, so yeah.
And then, they continue to fight. Eventually, this is where Zuko kind of gets a lot of offense in on Aang. He blows fire like right into his face, and it knocks Aang off of the ship, and he lands into the water. And Katara's screaming for Aang, obviously concerned about him and all that type of stuff. And then his tattoos begin to glow. I think we talked about this. We didn't. This is what the Avatar state is. We don't know what it is yet. This is still the first. This is only the first couple episodes, but something comes over Aang where all of a sudden he takes the water and he spins around underwater, and he's like.
We saw briefly in the flashback of how he got in the iceberg. So, even though we know what it is because we've seen the show, but like for a first time viewer, we just see that like whenever Aang is like in like life threatening danger, like something will happen and it'll get like super powerful.
So like he spins around,
and he said earlier last episode that like he isn't a waterbender.
Yeah,
but then we see him like make a giant water tornado around himself, get back onto the ship, and just like whip everyone off the ship overboard.
Yeah, and I do like the reaction because Sokka's just like, "Did you see what he just did with the water? Now that's waterbend." No, it's Katara says it, and Sokka's just like, "Now that's water." Because think about it, like. They haven't seen waterbend done like that, like ever.
Yeah. And I like how Sokka's the one to call it waterbending because he's always been just like calling it magic.
Yeah.
So like he's so impressed by Aang, he's like, now that's waterbending. Like he actually says what it properly is.
And then now I won't tell you I saw this scene because they do a callback to this scene in the season 2 premiere, if you remember, because when he's having all his nightmares and stuff, they showed this scene like obviously with himself and then like a version of himself in the state. I used to think this was just a dream he had. I didn't realize it was a callback because I hadn't seen the first episode.
Oh yeah, you watch it out of order, right? You're right.
Yeah, so I didn't realize that this was like a legitimate scene they made a callback. I thought this was just like a nightmare he was having at the time when I saw that episode. So I didn't realize this was like. It's kind of cool that they come back. That this scene ends up being kind of like a callback, like later on and all that.
Yeah.
Stuff. And then Aang falls to the ground because I think we don't know this yet, but when you go into this avatar state, it like I think it takes a lot of energy out of you and stuff. So
yeah, like he's exhausted. And he like passes out for a second, but Appa finally lands. Sokka and Katara run off the ship and like go over to Aang.
Yeah.
As I said, all the firebenders got like knocked off overboard.
And then
Aang's like tired, but he says like, "Hey, thanks for coming." And I think Sokka says like, "Oh, we can't let you have all the glory."
Yeah, I do.
So I like how like Aang and Sokka are like on good terms now.
Yeah, and I do like that like. Sokka's still trying to play cool and all that type of stuff, but he's starting to open up now a little bit more and stuff like that. I mean, if you think about it too, this is like the first real conversation that Sokka and Aang have with each other. That's like them actually like genuinely on good terms and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, Aang's been friendly to Sokka, but Sokka hasn't been to Aang.
Yeah, so I'd say mutually on good terms and all that.
Yeah, and I like it because like they pretty much end up becoming best friends.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
I mean, brothers, if you think about it, because, Aang, Katara.
Yeah, pretty much. And, maybe you could say it's a bit too quick. I could understand that, but I do think...
I'm fine with it. Like, Sokka was, like, didn't like Aang because, he was, like... He didn't like all this magic stuff, and he thought he was, like, a threat.
Yeah.
Now Aang has protected them from the Fire Nation. And he's like become more accepting of all this like bending stuff.
Yeah.
So his two main things to like not like Aang are like gone now. So it makes sense that he would appreciate him.
Yeah, and he found out that he wasn't even a Fire Nation spy too. That was a big reason he didn't.
Yeah, and he's the Avatar. like the hope for the world.
Yeah. So Sokka goes to grab his staff, and Zuko again, horror movie villain right here.
Sorry. Again, back to the Aang and Sokka thing. Aang is like, "Hey, I dropped my staff," and Sokka, like, without even having to be asked, is like, "Hey, I'll go get it for you."
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So again, I like it. Like Sokka's like showing to like be nice.
Yeah, and Zuko pops up out of nowhere, and he's about to climb back onto his ship, but Sokka gets his revenge and pokes Zuko with the staff like Zuko did to him with the spear and stuff. And I think Sokka has a good line here when he says, "That's from the Water Tribe," which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And then, about 3 more Fire Nation soldiers come out, and Katara. It's kind of cool because when I watched this, I had seen episodes where Katara was able to do waterbending for the most part, so it's kind of cool to kind of watch this scene in reverse type of thing. She tries to shoot the water like Aang did, pretty much, at the Fire Nation crew that with Zuko. She fucks it up the first time because Sokka gets like frozen in it and all that type of stuff. And then she tries it a second time, and it's sort of successful. It doesn't do exactly what it was supposed to do, but it ends up freezing the soldiers long enough for them to be able to escape. So they got there in the end, she got there in the end, but it still wasn't exactly. It is kind of cool because she ends up becoming Dane's waterbender teacher and stuff. So it's kind of cool to see. I
like it because the iceberg she destroyed at the beginning of last episode. She did it like from behind. Yeah. So this episode, like she realized, like, okay, so I'm just gonna like aim behind me and it'll work.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. And then they're about to leave. Obviously there's a good line that Sokka says where like Katara's trying to like rush Sokka to leave, and Katara's just like, "I'm just a guy with a boomerang." And
his like feet's frozen, so he's trying to like he's like, "Okay, Katara, it's your fault that I'm taking so long."
Yeah, and he's like, I'm just a guy. I didn't ask for all this magic and flying and stuff. And then this is basically a hit and run type of thing. They just grab it and leave all that type of stuff.
Oh yeah, like Sokka is like on Appa's tail and he's like screaming like yip 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 yip, like he's like ready to go.
Yeah. So he was willing. He was willing to like basically like fall off Appa pretty much just to get them out of there type of thing.
Yeah.
Like.
And as they're flying off, Iroh wakes up from his nap and like opens the door and he's like, is that a flying bison?
Yeah, that was a pretty good reaction.
I like how Iroh's like this wise like old man who's like seen everything, and he's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, and because he hasn't even seen a flying bison, I don't think.
Right. So I just like how this guy who like has all the answers is like surprised.
Yeah. Again, but that's. I mean, even though he's meant to be this wise old man, his character hasn't really like evolved yet. So
yeah, he's just been like a background character this episode. We haven't gotten much on him.
Yeah. Then Zuko gets up, and he's like he wants them to be shot down. And Iroh and Zuko basically together shoot this giant fireball at Appa, and Aang, jumps off Appa and uses his airbender to completely destroy the. Not destroy it necessarily, but
he redirects it to like the ice wall next to them, and it collapses on the ship, and they're stuck there.
Yeah. So essentially, if you think about it, pretty much this was the Titanic before the Titanic timeline was. So, I like too. Zuko was able to get out. I should make this joke, but it's been used.
I'm surprised they didn't sink, honestly.
Yeah, but Zuko was able to get out of the Titanic a lot faster than the people on the Titanic. So,
oh yeah. Oh, be sure we make that joke with what happened recently.
Oh yeah. Well, that's already.
Yeah, it's the Titanic. Like the ship, the whole thing happened like 200 years ago. So that's okay. But recently there was another Titanic.
I know. But I forgot about it because I watched the news so half-assedly that I forgot it.
Oh yeah, I don't really pay attention to the news either, but yeah. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah, but anyhow, so
we dated this video.
Yeah, to be fair, if things had gone according to plan, we probably could have made this joke when the video
before that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So, a lot can happen in 2 weeks, huh?
Apparently, yeah. If we did this when we were supposed to, we would have predicted the future.
Yeah, unfortunately, sort of. But I do. You want to mention the line that Iroh says, obviously, right? Because of the last scene we see of Zuko and Iroh this episode.
Oh yeah. So they're like picking themselves off the ground after Aang like covers their ship in snow, and Iroh's like, "Well, good news for the Fire Lord. The Fire Nation's greatest threat is just a little kid." And Zuko says, "That little kid just did all this. I won't underestimate him again."
Yeah, and I
like how Zuko's in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I will say that I don't think he necessarily underestimates him again, but it does kind of suck that he still kind of gets his ass kicked a lot by Aang, in the season 1 and all that type of stuff. So
yeah.
But yeah, what we gonna say before this?
And I was gonna say, Zuko's like immediately he's like, all right, as soon get all the snow off the ship, and we're going right after them. And then he turns and sees all the soldiers are frozen, and a couple of them are trying to thaw him out with firebending. And he's like, okay, as soon as you're done with that. Yeah,
it's meant to be done with comedic relief, but I do because that just shows you how desperate Zuko is to go after the Avatar and everything like that.
But he's not completely irrational.
Yeah.
He understands, oh, okay, well, I can't really do anything if all my soldiers are frozen. So, yeah, okay, thaw out, and then we'll go get them.
But I do think, in a way, even though I don't think they planned it that way, it does set up, because that's the whole reason, we see that one ship member and him get into a fight, if you remember, because, he was going to bring their shoulders. I mean, he did bring their shoulders into a storm and all that type of stuff.
Zuko does care about his soldiers. He doesn't want them to, freeze to death.
Yeah, but...
some villains would be leave them. They're weak. They'll die. I don't care. But, Zuko doesn't want his soldiers to die.
But I do like it. It becomes a bigger storyline in one of the episodes. yes, it's comedic relief here, but it is a big storyline that happens. Like Zuko, like it ends up being kind of like a storyline. Like, what is Zuko gonna do? Care about his ship, or care about his crew, or care about, or does he want to catch the Avatar type of thing?
Right, and like probably unintentional, but it does work nicely later on.
Yeah.
Then for the final scene of the episode, we see a couple hours have passed probably because it's like sunset now.
Yeah.
By the way, I love the lighting in this shot, like it's yellow, but I don't know how to like describe it. It's not like it's like a dark yellow kind of.
Yeah, I would say so.
It's a unique lighting for sunset. Like a lot of shows usually make sunset like red, or like.
Yeah.
I just really like this lighting for this scene, and I wish more shows used it. Basically.
Yeah. But I'm gonna let you talk about this scene too, because I've covered like the fight scenes and stuff, which I like covering the story scenes. But this is a big scene, like for you, because you like to talk about the scene like a lot in Avatar. So I figured I'll let you. This is like a big scene for you. So
this is a big scene because it pretty much sets up the rest of the show. It's because this is part 2 of the premiere. This is like the setup for the rest of the show. We see Sokka and Katara sitting on Appa, and Aang's like turned away halfway, kind of. And they're like questioning. So like, why didn't you tell us you were the Avatar?
Well, first they also ask him about like how he did all that stuff with the water and everything.
Oh yeah, right. Thank you.
And he doesn't even know. He just said I should have did it, which I think is kind of cool. Like that sets up stuff for later. So.
Mm-hmm. And Katara asks him, "How come you didn't tell us you were the Avatar?" Yeah. And I like that this scene we see later in the Guru episode in Book 2. Because Aang's answer is a big part of his character. He says, because he never wanted to be.
Yep.
Aang just wanted to be a normal kid, and then he got, like, destiny thrown on him.
Yeah.
But then Katara tells him, like, Aang, people have been waiting for the Avatar to return for 100 years and finally put an end to this war.
And I'll continue. I thought you were done.
Oh, no, you can go ahead.
Yeah, and then Aang doesn't really know how to do that. So Katara mentions, like, in folklore, pretty much, she showed the stories that you have to master all 4 elements. So this is when they get the idea.
Well, it also says, like, the order. And, like, we saw the order in the intro, but it's first time it's established in the show. Like, it's air, water, earth, fire.
Yep.
Like, and we learn later on this. It's a big deal that they learn it in a specific order.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's water, earth, fire, air.
Yeah. Maybe. Well, like whatever element you're born into is like your first one, and then you go from there.
Yeah, and then
so like when we get to Korra, she started off with water, then it was earth, fire, air. Like air was the last one she learned.
Yeah, I guess we should talk about this too because I have seen some of Korra. It's kind of cool, like. Aang didn't want to be the Avatar, and it's the complete opposite in Korra. Like she wanted to be the Avatar, so I do like that. That shows that both their journeys were different and all that type of stuff. You
haven't seen Korra, so I wasn't gonna bring it up, but in the fight scene with Zuko earlier in this episode, I liked how like Aang is like all about like evading and like, whereas Korra fights more like Zuko, where she's very like hot tempered and like can like let her anger get a hold of her, and she'll flail attacks.
Yeah. But I do like also too, like, because I remember because it's very much seen in the first episode and everything like that. Like, Korra wanted to be the Avatar, where Aang didn't want to be the Avatar and all that type of stuff. So.
Yeah, very interesting. And like, it's in their times as well. Like, Aang didn't want to be the Avatar, and is the Avatar like one of the darkest periods where it's 100-year war.
Yeah.
And Korra really wants to be the Avatar. In a world that like needs the Avatar less.
Yeah, so that's interesting. We should
and like we'll get to that when we get to Korra, but it is like something I wanted to bring up here.
Can you imagine, by the way, too, like because we talk about like you take Ben's character from that episode where he, they don't want him to kill Kevin, but he does. But Aang's calculator where he doesn't want to kill the, Fire Lord, but everyone wants him to. So now we can use it with the same time, like the same show timeline, not the same timeline, but you know what I mean, like the same universe.
Well, Avatar was very intentional. Like they very intentionally wanted to make that parallel to Aang.
Yeah, but can you imagine if the roles were reversed, where Core was in Aang's timeline and Aang was in Core's timeline? Like,
Oh
imagine...
yeah, it'd be so interesting because like I don't know because I feel like the times they were in made them like grow as people.
Yeah,
like if
definitely.
Aang was the Avatar in like a peaceful era, he probably wouldn't like accept the role as Avatar.
Yeah, he would have had to probably. So,
and with Korra, like a big thing with her is like like chilling out a little bit, like not being so aggressive and like learning to like communicate like peacefully.
yeah.
But like if she was the Avatar in this period, she wouldn't do that. She'd be like, "All right, let's go kill the Fire Lord."
Yeah, probably too, and she probably would have even mastered all the elements for us. She would have just...
Yeah, she
like
probably would have just like rushed in.
Funny thing is, even though she put season 2, if she had met that guy, I forget his name off the top of my head, the guy that tried to get Aang to go into the Avatar stage, she would have been, even though Aang's on the board with it in the beginning, but she would have completely been on board with it. She would the war.
Yeah,
like,
she would have like needed no convincing. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyhow,
so I do really like that. And of course, you haven't seen Core all the way, so I can't like go into super detail, but I do like it a lot.
But yeah, take us to what...
I think if I think a lot of that stuff enhances the stuff here. A lot of people don't like Korra, and like that's fine. Opinions or whatever. It's controversial to say the least. As opposed to Avatar. Avatar is The Last Airbender is pretty much universally loved. Not a lot of people hate it.
Well, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Don't forget The Last Airbender.
Oh yeah,
the movie.
The movie is a whole separate thing. It's like a spectrum. The Last Airbender movie, everyone hates it. Korra, like 50-50. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people love it. And then Last Airbender, the show, pretty much everyone loves it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we pretty much, we have a goal. Katara says like the goal is Aang master all the elements to beat the Fire Lord. And we have the goal of like he needs to master water first. Let's go to the North Pole and like we'll both learn water bending. And Aang even is excited. And he's like, "Oh hey, we can learn it together."
Yeah,
I like how he's excited about that because like he seems like somber before that. Like he doesn't really want to be the Avatar. Yeah. When he finds out he can travel with Katara and Sokka and like learn water bending, he seems like excited.
Yeah. And then
Katara's like, "Hey Sokka, you can bust some Fire Nation heads along the way." And he's like, I like the sound of that.
Boy, does he ever do that? Not even just Fire Nation heads. I think he bashed
so he's like, Katara's like, "Sokka, you can kill a lot of people." And he's like, good. He's like evil, like twisting his mustache. Good. Much murder. Many war crimes.
And it's not even fire. Some of the times he doesn't even bash Fire Nation heads. He bashes, Earthbend.
Oh yeah, Sokka does not discriminate. He kills people from all the nations.
Yeah.
Hey, Sokka's like, too bad they're all the airbenders are gone. I could kill some airbenders while I'm at it.
Yeah.
And then before that, Aang pulls out a map, and he's like, "Okay, we got to go here, here, and here before we go to the North Pole."
Yeah.
And Katara's like, "What's here?" Like thinking like it's an important thing. And then we see Aang's like saying like, "Here we can ride this animal, and here we can go, ride this animal." Yeah. They don't like it when we do that, but that's what makes it fun.
I do like one of the ones was the koi fish because we see that actually in one of the episodes.
The koi fish. Thank you. Yeah, because that's an episode. The next episode actually. Episode after that.
I know the chronological one is tough, but yeah. So that's the end. I do like in this scene, by the way, too, because we mentioned like lighting and stuff. Like the sun's coming up in an area, like you could see like it like showing there was like a little light of hope in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Aang is that last hope for the world.
Yeah, so I did kind of like that. The sun was kind of just rising at this time and all that type of stuff. So
and very iconic scene. It is like I said, it sets up the whole rest of the series. And I do like, even though it's goofy, Aang like joking about wanting to make a bunch of detours.
Yeah,
is nice because like it shows his character. He's very fun. Like he's not taking this like super seriously yet.
Yeah.
It also makes sense because like not every episode in the show is like going to be like super serious. Like we got to go kill the Fire Lord. Yeah. Like, a lot of book 1 especially is like them doing like little side quests.
So it makes sense that this happens this way.
Yeah, like it establishes right away, like okay, we're gonna make some side tours. We're not going right to the North Pole.
Yeah, and especially too if you think about it, because we don't even know about the comet or anything like that. So Aid's probably thinking, okay, we got some time here, like.
Oh yeah. He doesn't know about the comet yet. So as far as they know, they got years.
Yeah. So can you imagine what Aid thought when this comet came along? Like shit. So taking all the side stops and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Oh well, he literally says to Roku, he's like, I haven't even mastered water, and I'm supposed to do water, earth, and fire like in a couple months.
Yeah. But he's probably. But think about it, by that point, he's taking all these. He had taken all those side stops. Like, man, we should have taken all these.
He's like, oh my god, I wasted so much time. Well, it's funny. Literally, the episode after that, he's freaking out. He's like, it's the water bending scroll. He's like freaking out. He's like, oh my god, we wasted so much time. I gotta master water.
So I like, in a way, they actually made like the fact that they did all these side quests and then they found out they had this comment. Like I like how it kind of backfired on them in a way too. Like
it's like taking a test and then finding out like there's a time limit on the test, and it's like, oh my god, I should have wasted so much time.
It's like when you procrastinate on a school project too, and then you only have like 2 weeks to do the
project. Oh yeah, like, oh shit, let's do it tomorrow. By the way, we've all done that before.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. But yeah,
except in this case, the world ends if Aang doesn't get it in on time.
Yeah.
Oh, they make that joke later on too in Nightmares and Daydreams. Aang's having a nightmare about Ozai, and Ozai's like, did you prepare for your math test? And Aang's like, oh my god, I forgot about the math test.
Well, don't forget too, by the way, like they wait so long too. Don't forget in the last episode, they even tell Zuko, like, yeah, we're just not even gonna bother now. Like his Aang hasn't even mastered like all the elements.
Yeah, Sokka's like, yeah, if Aang fights the Fire Lord now, he's gonna lose.
Yeah. Like imagine by the way if Zuko didn't join the group, because they would have been screwed. Like
Zuko like wasn't gonna tell them. So if he didn't join, like they would have waited, and the Earth Kingdom would have gotten wiped out.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Like.
So I mean, we're talking about stuff way later down the line, but again, this is like the first episode.
Yeah.
So it makes sense because this sets up like the whole rest of the show.
So yeah, let's do Lettergrade. I think the more we talk about this episode, I'm gonna give this episode like an A.
I'm gonna give it an A as well.
Yeah, I think it's like
I think we gave episode 1 like a B plus, A minus.
I think I went B plus, you went A minus, and then I changed my mind to an A minus. But somebody gave it an A minus. But
so I like this one slightly more.
I think it's good character development. It's a lot of significant things happen. Like we find out on screen, Aang's the Avatar. We see the Avatar state for the first time. We see the Aang use a scooter for the first time. Like we see a lot of significant things. Obviously, we get the entire plot of the show where we find out Aang has to go master all these elements, and it sets up everything that happens in season 1. Just very significant episode. I feel like
we get a lot more good Sokka moments.
Yeah.
Katara didn't get a lot of moments in this episode, but it makes sense because she was like the focus of last episode.
Yeah. I feel like we should talk about this too. Like it's kind of a transition episode because I think it meant to think Katara's gonna be told in Katara's point of view, and I think that this episode changes that. Like it's gonna be told.
Yeah, this is the episode that establishes Aang as the main character.
Yeah, so I think that's really cool. Just a really
well, Katara is a main character, but not the main character.
Yeah, because I think if you watched last episode, you would have thought Katara was going to be the main character. I think so.
Yeah.
Just
a couple shows do that where they start off with one character and then they switch it to another.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Breaking Bad does that a little bit. Even though Walt becomes the main character the whole time, Jesse. I mean, obviously because this actually happened at IOL type of thing, but Jesse becomes becomes a main character alongside Walt and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of it. Well, I can't think of any shows that you would know of where they do this, but
yeah, let me see if I can think of any real quick.
Because I mean, I can think of a couple. We haven't seen them, so you wouldn't get what I'm talking about. But
yeah. Maybe Better Call Saul. Kim becomes a bigger character that even though Saul's the main.
Well, I'm talking about a show that starts off like last episode like started off with Katara and Sokka.
Yeah.
And then we don't meet Aang until like a couple minutes into the episode. I'm trying to think of another show like where it starts off with a different character, and then we don't meet like the main character until like later on.
Yeah, let me see if I can think of one while we can.
I can think of a couple, but you wouldn't know them, so it's
Yeah. I mean, the only other one I can think of is Death Note, obviously, because like you think Light's going to be the main character the whole time, and then L kind of becomes the main character alongside Light. Type of thing.
Right. Well, even then, Light's like the main character.
Yeah.
Still. He
Yeah.
He just shares it.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I don't know, but other shows do it. But the point is, I like it. It is nice.
Yeah. We both said A. I want to make sure we both got a lot of grades in. And yeah,
great episode, great start to a great show. I love it.
Yeah. I think I think we said we would grade. Do you want to just say also A too if we're combining both? Because I feel like that's kind of a good bit of grade.
Yeah, last episode was an A-. This one was an A. It equals out to an A.
I think our only real critique of this episode is probably that like Zuko kind of gets like shat on a little bit, even though because he's
right, even though he's like the main. Well, I mean, like he's the main. He's the villain we care about. Like, who really cares about Zhao? Honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he's kind of the main villain. I would say later on. I guess you find out, but
yeah, but like for the most part, like Zuko's the one like we see more often. And Zuko's like a big character later on.
Yeah.
Iroh isn't in it that much, but that's fine. Like, he's important later on. It sets him up. He's in the background. He doesn't need to have a big role.
Yeah.
Like every important character being established right from the get-go isn't a good thing if like they're taking up space. Like, it's the first 2 episodes. You can't like overwhelm the audience,
Yeah.
So
a lot of TV shows.
Oh, sorry. What's up?
A lot of TV shows do that. Obviously, example like even though Phineas and Ferb's like very one-offy and stuff, like some of the characters later on, like you see the main ones, but like some of the minor ones end up kind of becoming main ones. Like I forget the name, but the guys that gives like Perry the Platypus's missions, he becomes like a bigger character later on and all that.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of Phineas and Ferb, so I'll be interested in when we review that.
Yeah.
But like I said, Katara was a big focus in episode 1, and then Sokka like was a big focus in episode 2. So like it's nice to like they kind of balance out.
Yeah. And I think too another highlight, if we're just grading both episodes, if we're talking about both episodes, Sokka's character like progression and all that type, and his development was really good.
Yeah, Sokka already has great character development. It makes Sokka is like my favorite character in the show.
Yeah.
So I'm happy about that. Already shown he's a great character.
Think about it. I think he develops Sokka's part, even though his comment was
aside from Zuko, he probably develops the most.
Yeah, and he probably develops the fastest out of these. If we just ranking these 2 episodes, he probably develops the fastest.
Yeah, the fastest. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, not that it's a competition, but he probably has a scoreboard right now. Be like, yep, my character development's doing so well right now. Like,
yeah, and it's nice. He's not like a screen hog or anything. Like, it's pretty natural.
Yeah. And yeah, that's basically it.
Great start to a great show. I loved it. Looking forward to more.
Yeah, me too.
These episodes definitely hold up. If anything, I appreciate it more because I was like 4 years old when I saw this.
Yeah,
so I think now that I'm 22, I appreciate it much more than I did when I was 4.
And I think we talked about this. That's what the good thing about. That's what makes Avatar such a great show. Is it's any age can watch it. You can watch this as a kid, but you appreciate it even more as an adult. Type of thing. So sometimes it's not good though. I will tell you a story. I watched a movie once. I think a couple movies. Don't watch Avatar before you watch like a new movie that you've never seen before, because it's not gonna make that movie look. Because the movie itself wasn't bad. I was just watching Avatar before that. You kind of saw
it does not compare to what I was just watching. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you feel the dip in quality.
Yeah.
That's not to say Avatar's flawless. I'm sure we'll get to its flaws later on.
But I'm just saying,
it definitely holds up, and it is a good show, not just for kids, but all ages.
Yeah, but it doesn't help. So, like I said, make sure if you're gonna watch something else, don't watch Avatar first. So
yeah, it'll ruin it. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that's the one thing Avatar has over Danny, because I think we're gonna talk about this when we review Danny. Those first episodes with yes, it makes sense because it's character progression, but when Danny doesn't know how to use his powers, it just doesn't hold. It sometimes they don't hold up all that well. Like,
right, it's a little too much.
Yeah.
And of course, season 3 of Danny is a whole thing that we'll get to.
But we're just specifically saying like season 1 of Danny sometimes doesn't hold up because like, Danny doesn't know how to use.
I'm saying season 3 of Danny really doesn't hold up.
Yeah. So.
And Ben 10, the original show is still pretty good. I mean, there's some stuff that doesn't hold up as well.
Yeah, that guy coming back. I don't know.
Oh yeah, well we'll get to that.
That's gonna be our new thing now. By the way, we're gonna be blending that up now every chance we get too. Like
that's our new Nier.
Yeah. Oh, here he is.
Oh yeah. Oh damn it, we can't go a single video without talking about Nier.
Not video. We can't go a single conversation without talking about him. Like,
oh god, yeah.
But anyhow, I'm just dragging this video out. So yeah, again.
Yeah. Great episode.
Let's end the video off. While I text my friend, let me do some plugs.
Check my channel out, AJ Talent. I have no videos on it, but I plan to eventually, hopefully.
I know.
I quit my job, so I have more free time.
Yeah, so let's get to that. I mean, this isn't going to tie in because we're actually going to do something for a change. So next week, since AJ quit, well, you did quit your job, right? Because this video is going up I think this week. I want to make sure.
Yeah, I quit my job.
So your boss just inadvertently, imagine your boss watches this video and he's like, "Wait, quit his job?" Like you never told him.
Well, I mean, of course I told him.
Yeah, but yeah. So we even though we've been doing pretty well, obviously things have been hectic because AJ was supposed to be working a part-time schedule, but it didn't really work out that way.
Oh yeah, I was supposed to be part-time, and they gave me more than 40 hours a week, and it was exhausting. I was doing a lot of heavy lifting. It was awful.
Yeah, so we're gonna do something. So AJ, there's a window here where AJ. I don't want to make it sound like you don't have a life, but let's just say he doesn't have to work. He doesn't have to do.
I'm not doing a full-time student schedule, and I'm not doing a full-time work schedule. So yes, that I have more free time. Thank God.
Yeah, I didn't want to make it. I just made it sound like you didn't have a life. I was about to say you're not doing much. I was gonna make it sound like you were just sitting around.
More like I'm not exhausted, which is fine.
So Wednesday through Sunday, AJ and I are going to record a ton of stuff, get that stuff in the can, so that way, we're going to try to do 2 videos.
Yeah, we'll get more videos done in this week than we will have in the last 2 years.
Well,
oh yeah, knock on wood. Oh listen, yeah. Owen's always the one who cancels. I'm telling you, he's gonna call me tomorrow and be like, "Hey, a couple things came up. We can't do videos."
Yeah, well, that's why. Let's just get to. That's why this video hasn't happened. I've been plugging it, saying, "Oh, it's gonna happen this day."
Admittedly, last time was my fault why we couldn't do this because we ran out of time.
Yeah, and then and then we didn't do. Then we went. Then 2 weeks ago. Well, no, that was 2 weeks ago. Last week was my fault because that's why. We're recording this the day before the video is actually supposed to go out, really squeezing it in. So, so we're going to try to get a ton of stuff out. We're going to get a ton of stuff in the can. I will do some plugs. Obviously, you can check out the Ben 10 guessing game where I try to guess what happens in Ben 10. I think I did fairly well, right? I did okay.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, from going off the memory of a show you vaguely saw with me 15 years ago, yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, and then we also have...
We'll be doing more down the future, by the way. I'll be guessing Walking Dead eventually once we start that.
Yeah, and I was going to have you guess Yellow Jackets, but you really can't guess Yellow Jackets.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't really work because I know nothing about it.
Yeah. So we do this for Red versus Blue. I feel like we really can't because you've
already seen 5 seasons. I mean, I guess you can guess what you think will happen later on.
Yeah, I guess, but I feel like we're already kind of into the show, though, so that doesn't really work.
Yeah, but there are a couple shows that, we can do that for, but we'll talk about it amongst ourselves.
Future, and then obviously another past video, watch our review of Kiss Time Sis, Season 1, Episode 2, the Lana rated review. We waited so long, 2 people were president. There was 2 presidents during that time. That's how long we waited.
Oh, shit, you're right. Yeah, I think it was still Obama when we did that. Now
I didn't even realize until producer pointed it out to us. Actually, so
Yeah, we've gone through 2 presidencies. I went through high school and college. You went through college.
Pandemic.
Yeah, I went from my teens to my 20s. You went from
my teens to my 20s.
Were you 19 when we did that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you went from your teens to your 20s as well.
We can both drink. We can both drink since then.
Yeah, we can both legally drink.
Yeah.
Oh god.
But yeah, a lot of
facial hair.
I would say I mean I was back then, but I think I grow it more now than I did back then.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I couldn't grow it at all back then. I was like 14.
I moved into a new house. Well, technically, yeah, I moved into a new house actually since then. So
I was talking to our cousin earlier, and it's weird to think she's older than I was when we made that video.
Yeah, it's so weird.
And she's still like a baby to me, which is, even though she's like a teenager now.
Yeah, but anyhow, go watch that video. It's not doing as well in views as it did the first time, mainly because it's on a different channel, and I haven't shared it for obvious reasons. So, because I can't, I don't know where to put it because. Well,
I mean, our first video was like literally 500,000 views, so I kind of figured we weren't gonna top that.
I also, and again too, it's on a different.
That's
like I said, yeah, we did, and then, yeah, I showed you the thumbnail for that too, right? What the thumbnail was for that video? Okay.
I'm so happy it was you and not me.
I so hate the fact that it was me and not you, because you're the one that put up this.
Maybe halfway through the show we'll change it to me.
The thing is, the person who makes our thumbnails doesn't know you, so that's why
right.
So that's why I'm taking a bullet here for this show.
I'm so happy we have different friend groups. Woo-hoo.
Yeah. But anyhow,
yeah, we've been rambling. Do you want to plug anything else, or is that?
Yeah, I'll say the stuff that's incoming. We're going to review. This is still going to be every other week. We're going to review episode 3 of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Southern Temple, at least at one point. That will be one video. The first episode of Ben 10. Retro movie reviews. We're going to be reviewing La Strada. This time it is happening. Producer is going to make sure that happens. Pretty much it's just going to happen. It will happen. I'm going to watch it right after we get off of here. This time it kind of works out that we did have to hold off because you can actually be on the video this time around. So, so you can say, remember how you said I have a different friend group? I think you're about to be in that friend group, by the way. So be ready to be on a thumbnail for Kiss Time Sis, by the way.
Hey, I can use more friends.
So, and then, this is a big announcement. In that time, we'll probably maybe have started Danny Phantom, I don't know, but get more Ben 10 under the can, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I feel like we should review a SpongeBob episode, like in that time, if we have that.
Yeah.
If we have
and also Red vs. Blue, the final season got announced, so we'll be starting that back up again.
Yep. So
it'll be out in fall, so I would like to catch up.
Yeah.
Although I said the same thing about Attack on Titan, and that didn't happen.
Yeah. But we're doing better now than we were. I think now that you're out of that job, we're gonna do a lot better. So but we're gonna make this announcement. So because of the quality and stuff about the first Red versus Blue videos and stuff, we're gonna go back and we're going to review Red versus Blue Blood Gulch trilogy again. Well, the Blood Gulch pretty much we're gonna do that. It's since we went into detail about it before, we're just gonna say our favorite things that happen in it and all that type of stuff.
Right, we're not gonna go like in scene by scene because it's 5 seasons.
Yeah.
But we'll go over like the general plot and the characters, our favorite things, what we didn't like, what we did like, and we'll also talk about Out of Mind again and Recovery 1 because we thought we recorded Recovery 1, but then we never did.
Yeah, and then one time we were supposed to. And then, I think we reviewed some. I think we reviewed that Death Note like final chapter thing, and that took longer than we thought. So,
yeah. So anyway, we're gonna go over seasons 1 through 5 again in one video, and then the 2 miniseries, Out of Mind and Recovery 1, in another video.
Yeah, and I'll just say this for the future videos for a little bit. Just watch this video for the plugs because I don't think we're going to do plugs since we don't know exactly when the videos will be out. So we're just gonna we'll still do plugs, obviously, but we won't say like what's coming and all that type of stuff because of when all this stuff's being recorded and everything like that.
Yeah.
So
but anyway, we've rambled a lot. This whole section's gone on like 20 minutes, if not more.
Yeah. I don't know what happens, but thank you guys for watching. And since this has been recorded in the past twice, we would talk to you guys in whatever future this is, because technically this is the future. I don't know what the time is anymore. Like,
Wrap it up. I'm tired of doing this.